The town's Community Responders for Equity, Safety, and Service, or CRESS, are designed as an alternative to the police in situations that don't involve violence or serious crime. They will be handling calls mostly during business hours every day except Sunday. Amherst Fire Chief Tim Nelson is part of the leadership team for the new department. He says among the kinds of calls that town emergency dispatchers could send CRESS to are mental health checks and well-being checks.
Someone hasn't heard from a friend for a while. Someone hasn't heard from a family member for a while, or they've called and no one's picking up the phone or something like that.
There are now 5 community responders in Amherst. Nelson says he expects an additional 3 will be ready to join the team in February. For the New England News Collaborative, I'm Alden Bourne.
Houston Browdy, I am Marjorie Egan. Welcome to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. We are broadcasting live as we do every Tuesday and Friday from the Boston Public Library. We are also streaming on Facebook.com/GBH News. Thank you very much. And YouTube.com/GBH News.
I would hold the applause till see how we do. I mean, that'd be my advice to the audience, but that's your decision. You know, I started today in a very good mood. Before we get started, I'm already in a bad mood.
Doesn't take much.
No, well, actually, this was not insignificant. Right before we went on the air, I'm watching live coverage of the funeral on CNN of Sandra Day O'Connor. Everybody knows the first woman on the Supreme Court. And Jamie, unfortunately, points out for me who's sitting there, an insurrectionist by the name of Ginny Thomas, the wife of the corrupt grifter, Clarence Thomas. Did you read the ProPublica story earlier in the week?
Yeah.
Can you just describe briefly? We're not doing this. We're just going to get it out of our system. Explain what he did.
Well, he was worried that he wasn't going to make enough money as a Supreme Court justice to really stay on the court. He might have to leave, and
he got the word out.
Might have to leave as well. And after he said this, a bunch of conservative, well, not a bunch, I should say, but several conservative billionaires decided that to keep him on the court, to do their bidding, they would start inviting him on extravagant vacations and buying him RVs and that kind of stuff.
You know, I promise 2 seconds, then we'll move on. So we have Trump over the weekend praising Viktor Orban, quoting Vladimir Putin, quoting without attribution Adolf Hitler.
Right.
And then we find out on Monday, surprise to nobody, this grifter, and we know he's a grifter, and we know he's corrupt, yet another example of billionaires and cases that they care about, even if not their own cases, come before the court. He takes money to stay. Is he beholden to these people?
I would say
he's beholden to these people?
I would say he's beholden to these people. Yes, I would. But you know, we're in a state of affairs, I guess.
In any case, so speaking of justice or injustice, the U.S. Attorney's Office announced yesterday that more than 24 people accused of buying sex from a local prostitution ring may face criminal charges. We talked about this network before, operating in Cambridge, Watertown, and the D.C. suburbs, around whether to name and shame the so-called Johns. Acting U.S. Attorney Joshua Levy, we should get him on the show actually, appears to be open to doing this, saying, and this is a quote, "There'd be accountability for the buyers who fuel the commercial sex industry. If indicted, their names, if charged actually, I don't know if they have to be indicted, their names would become public record, but so often these cases, as we know, disproportionately punish the women involved." A little bit later in the show, we're going to talk about a wonderful thing that Robert Kraft did, but it's worth mentioning a not wonderful thing he did in 2019. He's charged with soliciting prostitution in the Orchids of Asia Day Spa. The outcome of the case, as best I remember, the woman who ran the spa faced charges for crimes against society.
Yeah.
Was placed on house arrest, spent 6 weeks living in a house that was infested with vermin. One of the sex workers was held in detention for 5 months, waiting to be handed over to ICE, and I think she was ultimately deported, I'm not sure. Kraft faced no such restrictions, and that's not aberrational. So we have a bunch of questions. Do you favor naming the Johns? If you do, is naming the Johns enough, or should we just legalize the whole thing? Is this another place where the criminal justice system always tips the scales of justice towards the rich and powerful? 877-301-8970. I don't know this Joshua Levy, the acting U.S. attorney, at all, who took over after Rachel Rollins resigned, but good for him. It's not a done deal yet. Some magistrate, which we shouldn't even have in this state, some magistrate's got to decide there's probable cause or some such thing, at which point they will be charged, and at which point Levy will name, and they're supposedly business people, military leaders, political leaders, all this kind of stuff, right?
They must be a little unnerved at this particular
I would be a little unnerved
juncture.
if I was on that list.
You hope that Levy waits till after Christmas, because otherwise it's going to be a very fraught holiday for lots of people.
Can I ask you something?
That's the question. Do you tell your family before you get indicted, or do you wait to tell them after you get indicted and hope you don't, they kind of slip by you or something like that?
First you get the plastic surgery, change your name, and leave town. And then you leave a note unsigned in the drawer of your spouse or partner. Or
I remember we had Maura Healey in here when she was the Attorney General, and she was talking about the sex trade in Massachusetts.
Right.
And it was unbelievable. She said there are over 9,000 searches for sex buying opportunities in Boston every day. Most of them occur about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I thought that was interesting.
People leave work,
You're planning your ride home, and maybe you stop off on your ride home. I thought that was incredible. And each ad, there's an average of 20,000 ads for paid sex monthly in Greater Boston at various different sites. I thought that was incredible. 9,000 searches. They're not doing their work, Jim. They're looking for sex opportunities on the way home from work.
877-301-8970. Should Johns be named, not just in this case, but in all these cases? Or is your position, by the way, you know who supported decriminalization? I didn't know till this morning.
Kamala Harris.
When she was running for a former U.S. Attorney General.
I don't think she's right about that.
Well, you know what? Her criterion was paid sex between consenting adults. The problem is, what is a consenting adult? And often the woman is, quote, consenting while really not consenting. Obviously.
There are a lot of sex workers, often they're male sex workers, who think that that's okay, consenting sex between adults. But, when you read these stories, you find out that a lot of these women that wind up going into prostitution started when they're 13, 14, 15 years old.
Not by choice.
No, and they come out of Department of Children and Families, the foster care system. I think these are drug addiction, mental illness. Many of them are not women that have a lot of choices in their life.
Can you give me one argument as to why the Johns in these cases, under the current state of law,
we've changed.
One argument as to why they should not be named?
Well, there is no argument to why they shouldn't be named. I mean, this is a great thing. It's really was talking about.
Well,
you got to get rid of the demand side, not the supply side, the demand side. So I think this is great. We used to arrest all the women, right?
I remember
the women all would get arrested, and it was kind of a wink and a nod, and they'd be out the next day, and often.
Well, they weren't in this Orchid's day spa thing.
No, they really went after them here. And then I think that we became more enlightened about this and realized that a lot of women are in this not of their own volition, and there's a lot of sex trafficking where people are brought from different countries, different states to become prostitutes. So they're not, it's almost like a slave trade.
Okay, so if we had a prosecutor here, and I wish Andrea Cabral, who used to be one, well, she's going to be around sitting in for me tomorrow, so you can talk to her about this too. Why would a prosecutor ever not charge the Johns if they're charging anybody? And if through their discretion they decide to charge nobody, that's another issue you can debate. But if they're charging anybody involved in this, what is currently a crime in most states, what is the rationale for not charging the buyer? I'm not trying to be.
Well, I think, Jim, it's a man's world, as you may know.
Is that really all it is?
Men have their needs, and why ruin their families and their reputations, and maybe they lose their jobs, they may be embarrassed in front of the community. I think it was a purely sexist kind of thing, thinking so ill of these prostitutes. Let's just arrest them and put them in jail, or as they did in this Robert Kraft case. The thing about Robert Kraft, I think he could have done more for these women than he did.
Like paid their legal bills for starters.
Yeah, and maybe offer more.
No, he did an apology, but not to the women.
Exactly. Apologized to his fans, his family. I mean, it's almost like they didn't matter, And I think that's what the legal system has been. Oh, these prostitutes, they don't matter. They don't matter. And I think that's
And the men do matter, obviously.
Yeah, I think what that was about. There's one more thing before we get to the phone calls, though. What cracked me up, and I shouldn't say it was funny because it's not really funny, but the location of these
Cambridge
so-called
and Watertown?
brothels. Well, it used to be just the Arsenal Mall, and now I guess it's Arsenal Yards. And so there was an apartment that this was going on, and right in Arsenal Yards, where people are paying high rents, right next to the Marshalls and the AT&T store. I think it's an AT&T store right there.
Marshalls is not the highest end thing. There are a lot of high-end kind of things.
It's not. Oh, it wasn't over at Copley Mall. It wasn't there. I mean,
No,
you
but
can't.
Arsenal Yards has some really nice stuff
It
going on
does.
over
It
there.
does. But I'm just saying, you just never know. I mean, right down the hall, you're wondering where there might be a lot of people going in and out of a particular apartment. But who would think it was a brothel down
the
the
thing that was
hall
upsetting to
from
me-
your $3,000 a month apartment?
I was hoping it was at the Natick Collection because we have done so many shows on untoward things. And by the way, we love the Natick Collection. We're not criticizing it. 877-301-8970. One last historical story before we start. You remember the case, we were talking about this morning with Michelle somebody or other, with Mark Wolf, the well-respected federal
Michelle
judge.
Robinson.
Where she was threatened with criminal prosecution while she was prosecuted. The judge did, correct me if I'm wrong, please. The judge threatened her with prosecution, and in fact, threatened anybody with prosecution who disclosed the name of the 60-something man.
60th married businessman and philanthropist.
Yeah,
that's right.
How was that?
Well, I think they separated it out because she was blackmailing the John. She threatened to expose him, and he paid her $280,000, and then she wanted more money. And when she wanted more money,
So she
he went
wasn't
to law
prosecuted for
enforcement.
prostitution. She was prosecuted for extortion. Is that what it was?
I'm not sure exactly what the legal charges were, but there was blackmail involved there. Those were the days when you went through the yellow pages looking for escort ads, Jim. We've moved a long way.
What do you mean? You look old. Remember the Boston Phoenix?
That's
In
right.
the old days?
Back page.
Our former colleague Peter Katzis. I'm
That's
not
right.
blaming him for that.
No,
by the way.
it was totally his fault.
What's the name of the guy who
We
owned
know
the
that.
paper forever?
Stephen Mindich.
Stephen Mindich, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
877-301-8970. Is it Jogi from Rhode Island?
Hey, whoever you are, welcome. What is it?
Jogi.
Hi, Jogi. What's up?
Jogi.
Jogi.
Hi.
I'd like to say something about decriminalizing the system. I think that when you decriminalize marijuana, have there been higher rates of drug dealing? I don't know. But in my opinion, I think the Dutch know what they're doing. You know, prostitutes are checked. They have to pass bill of health, and they're legit. I don't know why we have to have this system where people get arrested and we have, you know, the little gigolos. They're making big money, right? And also, what about the middleman? There's always a middleman doing bad stuff. So that's my opinion.
Well, thank you, Jogi, for the call. We appreciate it. Pro decriminalization. Again, Kamala Harris supported it when she was running for president.
Robert Randolph has got makes a great
say?
point on text. He says, who else but a brothel can afford the rents around here? That's a very good point,
I don't think
Robert.
brothel is a word that is used in the 21st century.
Okay, what do you want to call it? A sex den?
Well, whatever it is. I mean, isn't brothel like an anachronistic kind
No, I think they have legalized brothels in Nevada, right?
They do,
where
yeah.
all this stuff is legal out there. 877-301-8970. And I'd also be interested in your strategy. Were you to be one of these Johns that was arrested, what do you do? Do you wait until the indictment, or do you come clean beforehand? I mean, can you imagine if you haven't come clean beforehand, you're waiting to find out if you're going to be hauled into court and named and indicted, and your name's going to be in the local. The best thing about the local papers used to be the police blotters. How much do you miss the police blotters?
Oh, Cambridge, the Cambridge Chronicle.
Yeah, it is
That's the first thing people read.
That's right. Look to see all your neighbors there.
Love that.
Who did what? I don't know. Do you come clean first? I think you might want to come clean first, but I could be wrong.
We have to take a
Maybe
break.
you'll escape by the seat of your pants or
We have to
something
take a
like
break.
that. Seat of your pants is a bad thing to say in
image.
this context.
No, but it sort of fits the
We're talking
image.
about whether or not we should legalize prostitution or not. We're going to keep talking.
And step one, identify the Johns as the U.S. attorneys on the verge of doing here.
Identify the Johns, no question about it. It's a supply and demand thing,
And
Jim.
impeach this crook, Clarence Thomas, sitting next. Literally, she is an insurrectionist. She worked with Mark Meadows and legislators to try to overthrow the government of the United States.
It's a troika. There's Alito. He took a lot of things too, didn't he? Welcome back to Boston Public Radio.
No, not welcome back.
Oh, we're leaving.
We're taking a break.
We're taking a quick break. Thank you. You are listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GPH. We're broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library. Okay, it is the season of giving, Jim, and we weren't going to miss an opportunity to ask people to give if they're so inclined, especially if they've never given before. We have a one-day December drive, and we're hoping if you've not supported GBH and you listen to us a lot, we're on 15 hours a week. The station is on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and we do a lot of great reporting around at our station, and this is an opportunity to support what you listen to if you haven't before. We always have wonderful enticements. This time, it is a ticket to a French wine tasting with expert traveler and author Rick Steves, a virtual event not to be missed. You know something, when you're feeling really depressed and, the news is terrible.
Who are you going to call Rick Steves?
You watch Rick Steves' show, or you listen to his radio show on Sunday afternoons,
Great.
or we talk to him from time to time. It's so uplifting and to talk to him. So this could be an opportunity to get 6 small bottles of wine, enough for 2 people, shipped right to your front door. Then you talk with Rick and a sommelier for the next, I don't know, I think it's 2 hours, maybe it's an hour and a half. You get instructions on how to drink wine, different information about different kinds of wine, interactive trivia, all done online from your home, so you don't have to worry about driving anywhere after you've been drinking all this wine. And by the way, we've done this before. It's really, really high-quality wine. It's Thursday, February 6th at 7 o'clock. You get that for $150 to GBH, or you can, I think you can do the usual thing. Can you do the usual thing, be a supporter? I think so. I'm not sure.
What do you mean, $12.50 a month?
Yeah.
I think so.
I think so.
Yeah, it is. $12.50 a month for $150 all.
Yeah, $12.50 a month, and obviously $12.50 a month is a lot easier on your wallet at this particular time of year. 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org is where to give digitally online.
You have a choice. By the way, I would choose this wine thing with Rick. Rick Steves is one of the great storytellers of all time.
He's great.
In addition to being probably the expert on travel. You can either, for $12.50 a month and $150 all at once, do this wine thing on February 6th at 7 p.m., or you can spend the night with an insurrectionist, Ginny Thomas. You can spend a night and you can plot to overthrow the government of the United States. Oh my God, of America. This is a great enticement, to use Marjorie's words. They're applauding that. They want to spend the night with Jenny Thomas. Go for it. And the number is 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. As Marjorie said, it is a one-day pledge. So, by the way, you said if you haven't given and want to give more, this
That's
is a
right.
wonderful
We
thing
have
to buy.
some very generous
and by the way,
listeners.
a wonderful gift for somebody for Christmas is buying them a ticket to the 6-wine bottle evening with Rick Steves.
Yeah.
888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. We're live at the Boston Public Library, streaming at facebook.com and youtube.com/GBH News. If you're just tuning in, we're talking about the news that authorities, that's the U.S. Attorney in Massachusetts, seeking charges against 28 people for buying sex in this sex ring in Cambridge and Watertown. We have a bunch of questions. Should this sex work and this all be decriminalized or legalized? Should the Johns be, and that is a debatable question. I don't think there's any debate about as to whether or not that we should change policy and identify the Johns, as long as this is not legal activity, as long as you're going after other people, particularly the women in these situations. And by the way, Marjorie has decided if you are one of the Johns and you're deciding how to deal with the disclosure, we will pop you up to the top of the call list at
Yeah, there's 28 of them out there, right?
8970.
Sean from West Roxbury says, I don't see how naming the John would be a good thing. It would greatly impact their wives and children in a negative way. Another texter disagrees, says if you're an adult and commit a crime, you should be named. It would be a deterrent. And I think it would be a deterrent. I mean, obviously, if you
Yeah,
it's
you
going to be
think
a
so?
big-time deterrent. I mean, maybe, instead of 9,000 people searching for sex opportunities at 2 o'clock on the way home from work, we cut it down to maybe
8,000.
or maybe 3,500, on the way home from work. Bill in West Roxbury, thank you for calling.
Hey, Bill.
Hey guys, love your show.
Thanks.
This is a really interesting topic. It's been around for years. It's to prosecute the sex worker and leave the John alone. It's just such a two-sided system. I mean, I remember years ago that neighborhoods used to, when the prostitutes used to be out on the streets before phone, and internet.
Yeah.
And the neighbors used to write down the registration numbers
of the cars
Johns as they were driving around the block, and they would, send them a letter to their house.
By the way,
So,
Bill,
house them that
do you know
way.
where that activity used to go on? in a particular portion. No, I'm going to tell you where you don't know. Right outside the Boston Herald.
Oh, yeah.
When Marjorie used to work there.
There's a lot of prostitution on our block, yeah.
Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, Harrison Avenue.
If you know Marlborough Street, if you know like Marlborough Street in the Back Bay, there's only one block that goes in the opposite direction.
That's a block?
They changed that direction because that was the block.
Bill, how do you know that?
And that was mostly male. Well, because I lived in the neighborhood.
Yeah, nice try, my friend. Go ahead.
Male prostitution.
Okay.
Yeah. So I just think if they should decriminalize the sex workers. It would be healthier for them. It would be healthier for everyone involved.
Bill, thank you.
And if you're going to arrest the women, give you choice. Okay.
I'm with you on that. Thank you, Bill, for the call.
You know what I like in this bill that they're talking about up at the State House? We'll see how far it actually gets. They're talking about a way for these women to get out of the sex trade, which I think when you're talking about healthier for the women, I think it would be healthier for the women if they were not in the sex trade. So that's one of the opportunities. Give them some pathway to work with community groups that already do this kind of work, so you're not doing this. It is not... I don't think soul-enlarging work. You know what I mean?
Mike in North Carolina texts, and he has a really important question. What time does the regifting talk start today? He says he's trying to cover every base. He favors real Christmas trees. We need a replacement for MCAS, and can sleeping on wet sheets keep you warm in the winter.
Those are all the
topics. It's actually not warm in the winter. It's cool in the summer.
Those are all the topics that I think we should, say goodbye to. Rest in peace.
Can I tell you something?
And Jim wants to keep bringing them up over and over.
No, I don't want to just keep them. I want to do them today.
Okay, daylight saving starts at noon.
Let's go to Catherine in New Hampshire. You're next on Boston Public Radio. Catherine, welcome. Hi.
Hi, Catherine.
Hi, how you doing?
Good.
Fine,
good.
thanks.
Yeah, good. I wanted to bring up a point. I've studied women's issues for many years. And prostitution, the issue of prostitution in human rights has always been a concern of mine, and how it intersects with women's bodily autonomy and sense of self and agency. One of the problems, I think, with prostitution as we have it today is that it comes from an old standard where women are traditionally exist to serve men, and they don't really have a voice. And what happens consistently in the women that I've talked to that have been in the sex trade is they really have nowhere to go. They have no rights. A man pays $20, and there's a quid pro quo, we assume, for a certain thing.
Catherine, I should just say to you, the one place where I disagree with you, there are sex workers who are actually organized and actually unionized, I think, in Nevada. I'm not defending the practice of what they're doing or what's done to them. I'm just saying that occasionally they do have a voice and they actually testify in front of state legislatures. But go ahead.
Well, that's excellent that they are, and that's what I would advocate. And I think that though culturally in our society we're not really there to give women entirely that agency, unless we were to entirely legalize and regulate the industry, give women the right to be able to say, well, I offered this service and instead he tied me up in a motel for 3 days. I mean, I've heard too many stories
well,
like that.
Well, that person should be criminally charged. Catherine, this connection is atrocious.
Yeah, it's bad.
I'm sorry to cut you off. I think you made your point well. Thank you for making it. And by the way, the argument in favor of decriminalization is what Catherine touched upon, if you could make out what she was saying, is there's regulation. It's sort of like the argument, I guess it was made by Kohler earlier, to a degree about what was done about marijuana. Safer, you know what you're buying, all that sort of thing with the legalization in as many states. Why do you have that look on your face?
I just think of your own daughter.
Oh, I'm not defending.
Would anybody think this is a good idea? That some profession they'd want their daughter to enter? And that's kind of the thing. It's sort of, to me, it's just so demeaning to our, okay, so you'll get health checks so you don't have a venereal disease. Well, that's swell. I mean, that's just really swell.
Well, you know what would end it, though, rather than a legislative defeat, if they identified the Johns.
Yes.
I mean, that would really, if they go, who would you say was saying we should go after the consumer end? Was that Maura Healey as Attorney General?
Maura Healey was talking about the 9,000 people that are trying to make hookup dates at 2 o'clock in the afternoon in the city of Boston before they go home.
Read the next paragraph. Read what
she
said. Of the 9,000, what does she say? 8,940 worked at City Hall, she said, which is really incredible. They get out early and on the way home.
The peak time is 2 o'clock. It doesn't mean they all
call. Is that really what the
peak
time was?
Peak time is 2 o'clock. Yeah.
I thought you were making that
No,
up. Is
he
that
can,
really true?
He came back from
she
lunch.
said that on our show, you know.
That's right. She said that on our show. Yeah. And I don't know where she is. I don't know where the governor is, actually. No, governor is.
Zoe said, 2 o'clock, right after they finished listening to Boston Public Radio.
That's right.
They do a
That's
wholesome
right.
activity, 11 to 2.
We inspire
and then they go online.
a lot of prostitution here at Boston Public Radio.
Well,
Jean-Paul in Boston, thank you for calling.
You have 30 seconds, Jean-Paul. Welcome.
Hi, how are you? I think we need to move away from the embarrassing of the Johns. I think overall we forget that we have to get in with the technology. Even if these women aren't doing these things with Johns in hotels or on the streets, a lot of these people, the minute they turn 18, they go onto websites. So it's a whole technology aspect. So I think we forget about that kind of stuff. So
I don't think they wait till they're 18 to go on websites. They wait till they're 8 to go on websites and say they're 18.
These are the Johns or these are the women?
I think he's talking about the Johns, aren't you?
Yeah, either or. I think there's a whole technology aspect. So if you're not getting them at the hotels or the streets like the old days, I think they've all moved on to other aspects too. So I think the authorities need to even look at those kinds of things just to get it under control. Because
We got it. We got to go. Thank you, Jean-Paul. We appreciate your call. Thank you very much.
Okay, now we are moving on. Up next, we're going to talk with NBC Sports Boston's Trenny Casey. We're going to talk to her about the Patriots, Taylor Swift, and a lot of sporting news. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, live from the Boston Public Library, 89.7 GBH. We are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News and facebook.com/GBH News.
So here's the deal. It's a one-day end-of-year pledge drive, and you can participate by calling 888-897-9424 or going to gbhnews.org. The gift, or the enticement, as Marjorie calls it, is really one of the best. It's a ticket to a taste, and by the way, a ticket means it's your house or wherever, so it could be a bunch of people. Taste of France, a virtual wine tasting with Rick Steves, who is not only I think the most important and most skilled traveling authority, but he also is one of the great storytellers about his traveling. You get 6 small bottles of wine shipped to your door. Marjorie said that she and I played the role of Rick Steves a couple of times. The wine is really high quality. The date is Thursday, February 6th at 7 p.m. online, in your home, at your office, whatever. And it's great. It's really, it's $150 or $12.50 all at once. It's a wonderful way to spend the night with friends, family, etc. And as I said before, it's Christmas time, and if you're panicking like Marjorie does, because you don't know what I'm serious, you don't know what to give somebody you care a lot about, it's a fabulous gift for $150.
No,
888, one second. Let me just give the number, please. 888-897-9424 or gbhnews.org. Sorry.
That is a great idea.
It is a great
Christmas
idea.
gift.
You going to do it?
Well, I may.
Might.
It is getting to the panic point at Christmas season, and you could give that. It's a really fun time.
Gift.
Plus, you learn a lot about wine. Plus, you get to keep the wine in your home, so you don't have to worry about driving anywhere.
Plus, you spend a couple of hours with Rick Steves,
who is so.
How much do you love having him on the show?
Because he's so optimistic, and he talks about going all around Europe and actually meeting people that are there, the locals, and really sinking yourself into the culture. So it's very uplifting to listen to him. Anyway, as Jim said, this is just a one-day deal, one day, and we're done. It is the giving season. Jim just had a great idea. You could give somebody this for a Christmas gift. I'm sure they would be very, very grateful. $12.50 a month or $150 all at once to support this station and to get your ticket to the virtual event. It is on February the 6th at 7 o'clock online and right in your house, wherever you want to do it. And as I said before, you learn a lot about wine.
What's the phone number?
888-897-9424, gbhnews.org.
We hope you get a lot out of, just staying on our show in the last couple of weeks alone. James Taylor sat down with us in the studio. Philip Eng, the head of the T, spent an hour taking your questions. The great Heather Cox Richardson joined us, the governor, the auditor, the attorney general, the mayor, taking an hour of your calls. I think pretty important stuff, and we hope you care enough about it to make a contribution to this one-day drive and get a wonderful gift. a la the Rick Steves wine thing. 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. We're at the library. We're streaming at facebook.com and youtube.com/GBH News. Joined now at the BPL desk by Trenna Casey. She's an anchor and reporter for NBC Sports Boston. And we were watching her on TV yesterday from the studio.
Oh, my goodness. She had red booties on.
I did.
You did?
Yes.
Red boots.
Are those your Christmas booties?
Were you watching me on NECN?
Yes, we were.
Yes. On the Fast We Do This Thing, yeah.
Yeah. Christmas booties?
Christmas booties.
I love them.
I also call them my Taylor Swift Chiefs outfit.
Boy, well, you may as well, as long as you brought it up, giving out $100 bills to all the, not all the workers, but an awful lot of workers at Gillette the other
And listen,
day.
How does she afford it?
I was
That's
going to
the
say,
question.
I knew someone was going to say, oh, well, she's a billionaire. How could she possibly afford it? But you know what? Not every wealthy person
they
is generous.
You're
Not
right,
everyone
you're right,
goes
you're
into
right.
every NFL stadium and says, hey, thank you so much for being, our suite attendants today. Here's a couple, extra $100. I'm sure you guys watch CBS Sunday Morning, right?
No,
I do.
know what it is.
It
It's very
is
peaceful.
It is the hands down the best feature show that's on in the morning. And every year they do this feature on this guy. He's a secret Santa. He's completely anonymous, and he gives out $100 bills randomly to people during the holidays. Well, this fourth grade class was watching all of these videos, and they saw his, and so they all got the same little red caps he got, and they raised $8,000, and then they walked around. These fourth graders walked around into places all in their community and handed people $100 bills. People were breaking down in tears. For some people, $100. One woman said she had lost her job. She was down to her last $20. So, we may look at it and laugh and say, oh, what's $100? Billionaires have, billions of hundreds of dollars. But for some people, $100 can change the trajectory of their entire day or their entire month. So good on you, Taylor Swift. And what a cute little outfit.
Oh, she always looks cute.
Oh, do you know what else she did? She got it from a local business in Kansas City.
Is that true?
She ordered a box full of sweatshirts and things to wear to games, and then the owner of the place quickly knit her that hat she was wearing and put 87 on it and tossed it in as an extra his number as an extra gift. Her father also threw guitar picks.
Yeah, he
into
was
the
there.
stands.
Okay,
Yes.
I have a very quick Taylor Swift story, which I absolutely loved. The New York Times did an entire magazine piece about Taylor Swift, and they did the daily of the day about why Taylor Swift has captured the imagination of the country.
World.
The world. But they told this great story about when she was a kid, 11 or 12, she called up all her friends, one after another. Hey, you want to go to the mall? Let's go to the mall. And one after another, they all said, nah, we're not going to go to the mall. So her mother says, hey, I'll take you to the mall. So Mom and Taylor go to the mall, and they see all the friends who went to the mall without Taylor. And of course, Taylor was crushed. So her mother said, you know what? We'll just go to another mall and we'll have the day together. So she wrote a song about that, my best day ever.
Yeah, the best day.
Yeah, about her going to the mall with her mother. And the over-under on the whole daily, the thesis basically was that the reason she has captured so much of the world is because she has dealt with the adolescent and the late teen and the early 20s and the late 20s. She's gone through the stages of life for American women.
Yeah, and did you read the Time piece on her?
Yes.
The Person of the Year piece, she talks about how, or the author more than Taylor does. Taylor, she's my best friend, talks about how she gives a voice to this women of this generation, right? Where, her song, The Man, is about how she has done everything the same way a lot of male stars has, but she's cast under this different light. She talks about her breakups. She gives women agency over their own emotions, which I think is really great, which is why she's so popular. And now she's taken over the NFL.
Okay, so...
and hopefully her future, whatever he's going to be, her current boyfriend.
We're rooting for Travis.
We're rooting for Travis and Taylor. Hopefully
I think he's adorable.
He's a tight end, so hopefully he hasn't taken too many hits and he can be cognizant of their life together in the next 10, 15 years.
What did she do when he dropped the touchdown pass?
She was mad.
Dropped an F-bomb.
Yes, she
right
should.
there. We love that, Taylor Swift.
Okay, so normal kid.
He hasn't been playing that well, though, has he? Since they got together, he's doing all right.
He's had some big games. He actually had a couple of really big games when she was in attendance. I mean, in fairness, the Chiefs haven't been doing well overall.
Yeah.
They had lost 4 of 6 coming into Gillette. They have a lot of injuries on offense. I mean, the reason they're really still in the hunt in the AFC is in large part due to Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes.
Speaking of that, of all the humiliations that Bill Belichick has suffered, I would say me, the greatest humiliation is when, at the end of the game, the Kansas City Chiefs, and it was clear they were going to win the game anyway, are on the 4 or 5 yard line of the Patriots, and instead of scoring a touchdown, which they likely would have done, as you say, they kneel so they don't run up the score. How mortifying has that got to be?
I think it's, on my show yesterday, we had people arguing and saying, oh, well, that's just like the sportsmanship thing to do. And I was like, no, this has been a long rivalry. Like, the Chiefs have run up the score before on the Patriots. Remember that Monday night? Maybe you don't. I do, because it was 2014, and the Patriots went into Kansas City and got the doors blown off of them, like 42-27 or something. And after that game, the Patriots were 2-2, and people were calling for Jimmy Garoppolo to take the place of Tom Brady. Remember, there became a quarterback controversy, and then they came back a couple of years later to Gillette and again blew the doors off the Patriots. There was no mercy rule, but this to me felt like a mercy rule. Like, oh, poor Bill Belichick and his crummy team, they're terrible and they're not going to win. So rather than win this game 34-10 or 34-17, we'll just win it 27-17 and keep
Can I ask you a question that I know you're sick of? I'm not going to say who is more responsible, Brady or Belichick, because that's settled. I just want to understand. I don't mean to disparage winning 6 Super Bowls, which he's done, obviously. I don't understand why people in your business, after 4 years of horrible teams, 3.5 years of horrible teams, still say he's the greatest coach. I'm not saying I'm sure he's a fine coach. How can you be the greatest coach ever when you have Brady, you're the biggest and best, Brady leaves, and you're nothing. You're one of the worst teams. I don't get it. I just don't get it.
I think people look at what he accomplished when he was here. And listen, he is a great coach. And Tommy Kern just sent me a text message, so I'm going to repeat what he said on my show a week ago. The first 3 Super Bowls, when Brady was kind of still learning his craft, they won those because of Bill Belichick. The second 3 Super Bowls, they won because of Tom Brady. So really, in that era, it wasn't all Tom Brady. There was a bigger mix. But towards the end, when Bill Belichick realized what he had in Tom Brady, he didn't put pieces around him. Correct. And so it really was Tom Brady. I do think Bill Belichick can go and win again as a coach somewhere. What he should not be able to do is run the day-to-day personnel decisions, because it is the roster as the biggest reason why, and the fact that he's so insular that he does not bring in coaches that are developing these players. Like, their players, when they draft them, they very rarely make it to a second contract because they're not good enough, or they just simply don't want to pay them, and then they go somewhere else. Like, it has been poor roster management. I don't care how good of a coach he is. I know what he did for this town. I know what he did for this franchise. But at some point, you have to look and ask, is this right now the best person for the job?
Well, it's obviously not. Can we step back and talk about, we've discussed with you a million times the physical damage that is done to people who play tackle football, not just big stars who play professional football, but kids. There is a piece in the Washington Post you pointed out to us.
It's fantastic.
That is one of the most important pieces if you're a parent out there. Could you describe what they what they analyzed and what their conclusions were?
So the Washington Post took a look at data as to who has been playing football the last 10 years. So they took a look at youth participation, high school teams, and they looked at the demographics and socioeconomics of those kids. And what they found over the last 10 years is that in liberal, well-off areas of the country, participation in football has dipped. In some cases considerably. In poorer parts of the country, particularly the South, it has continued to rise to the point where there has been a massive uptick in participation of kids in football in Mississippi and Alabama, 2 of the poorest states in the nation. I think we have to. Do we have to?
Can we go? It was my fault. I want to continue this discussion
yes.
about this story. My apologies. We
have to take a quick break. Okay, that's because we're doing pledge today. That's why we have to take a quick break. So,
if you want to hear the end of the story, give money.
That's right. That's right. Quick pledge break, right back. You're listening to Boston Public Radio at the Boston Public Library and NBC Sports Boston's Trainee Casey, who's got a great story that she's going to finish right after the break. Listen to this from Kira in Medford. I love this one, Jim. I love that GBH is the soundtrack to my day. Even when the news is hard to hear, it's delivered by smart, funny, thoughtful people, and I want to support all the wonderful programming. Thank you for the new culture show with Jared, which goes right after us from 2 to 3 every day. That's Jared Bowen, of course. It's a welcome respite from the news. Let's lean into arts and culture. You know, that is a great new endeavor that we're doing here. Callie Crossley and Edgar B. Herg III joined Jared, and they have a roundup on Friday. What are you laughing at?
You are such a good person. We get this sheet. Half of these things say, I love Jim and Marjorie. You don't read those. And you read one about the call.
Well, that's because...
That's the difference between you and me.
That's because Jared has a new...
fine person.
I am not really a fine person.
No,
you have no idea what I do in my off hours.
You play one
slithering around.
On the radio.
But in any case, it is a great new show, and it's fun to hear about all the arts and culture around town, and it's fun to hear the three of them go back and forth. So that goes from 2 to 3. But we're only doing this one day. It is the giving season, and if you're in the mood to give, this is a time to do it. We have great people on this show all the time. Jim mentioned before the governor. We had the mayor. Heather Cox Richardson, who is a great historian who writes the most popular Substack. That's that news source that you pay like $5 a month. You can get her stuff every day.
Or nothing.
Yeah, some of them are for free. That's right.
Including her. You don't have to pay for her.
I think it's $5.
No, she told us on the air a huge percentage for readers are free.
Oh, then why am I paying $5?
I don't know. Go ahead, Margaret.
Okay, Philip Bang was here, and she took your questions. Philip Bang, of course, runs the T. So here's the deal. It's 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. And we also have the Rick Steves event, which you can tell people about. Yep.
I'm not telling anybody about it. Okay, I will.
Okay.
Here's this. It's this wine thing. It's on February 6th at 7 o'clock. You pay $12.50 a month for your $150 all at once, and you get a ticket for as many people as you want to invite over to your house. You get 6 small bottles of wine. By the way, they're not that small. It's not a full bottle, but they're not that small at all.
I'd say 2 glasses.
I'd say at least. Maybe
8
2
ounces.
and a half.
Yep.
And they deliver it to your door, and you drink along with a sommelier. The sommeliers we've had when we've done that are brilliant, funny, that sort of stuff. But Rick Steves is one of the great people to spend a night with. Well, to spend whatever. Oh my God. Okay, 888. What is it? 888-897-9424. gbhnews.org. It's a one-day pledge kind of deal.
That's right.
Year-end
Christmas
thing.
week.
Only today.
Giving season.
888-897-9424. gbhnews.org. Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy, Marjorie Egan, live at the library. And Trenny was mid-story about this spectacular piece about tackle football. Who's doing it, who's not? Continue, Trenny Casey.
Yeah, so just to give a quick recap, the Washington Post analyzed data from around the country looking at youth, high school, college football participation, where it has dipped, where it has ebbed, where it has flowed. And the conclusion, the broad conclusion, is that, and it's not just white wealthy kids. It's they're even seeing a dip in participation among black kids as well in some areas. It's really socioeconomic as much as it is racial. So if you live in a wealthier part of the country, a wealthier suburb, a wealthier estate, you tend to not put your kids in football anymore, especially if you're liberal. If you live in a poor, more conservative state, you are much more likely to have football as a major part of your life. It also is interesting that it's become, I think, part of this culture war, right? So you've seen big influxes in kids playing football in Mississippi and Alabama in particular, had the 2 biggest jumps from, and they also kind of looked at it like from the COVID area, like everything kind of dropped to COVID and then went back up, and there was a big spike in Mississippi and Alabama. Mississippi is the poorest state in the nation. But also there is, I thought this was, I don't want to completely misquote this line, but the line essentially was, depending on who your father voted for, might dictate whether or not you have a traumatic brain injury. Because families who come from poor communities tend to put their kids, and who vote conservative, families who voted for Trump are more likely to have their kids play football than families who voted for Biden. When they broke it down by ideology, and you kind of looked at what people thought about it in 2012 versus what they thought about football now, the disparity, overall, it was kind of small, like 68 to like 66%, like 66 now don't want their kids to play football. But when you got, and moderates were kind of the same, but Democrats went from like 65% allowing their kids to play football to 44%.
Wow.
Republicans went from, again, like 60-something% to 75%. And one of the things, the points that kept being made by some of the people they interviewed is that for kids who grow up without money, this is still seen as a way out.
Of course.
It's seen
like
as a
boxing
way. It's like
40 years ago.
Thank you, Marjorie.
Even though virtually none of them are ever going to be a professional football player.
Right. I mean, your chances of being a pro football player get smaller and smaller with each with each level. I mean, they're the top 2% of all of the athletes on. When you go to high school, it's 100 kids on a team, and then you go to college, and it's about 80 to 100 kids on a team. But then you go to the NFL, and it's 53 guys plus their practice squad. I think it's another like 10 or 12 guys on the practice squad. So like it's smaller and smaller, and the opportunities, there's fewer and fewer. Like there are hundreds of colleges. There are obviously probably millions of high schools, and there are 32 football teams. That's not a lot of jobs. And people always look at football players too, and they think, oh, well, they make all this money. Well, quarterbacks make a lot of money. Your cornerbacks, your linebackers, like guys who can get second-term contracts, sure, they make a lot of money. But if you're a year-to-year guy, your earning all comes between the time that you're 22 to maybe 30. And it's not as much money. I always try to tell people it's not as much money as you think it is. After you pay dues and into the pension fund and the union, and you pay your agent.
And after you've taken 3,000
hits and you need continuous care from the time that you're 40 or something years old.
Can I tell you something? You were talking yesterday, we were talking to Megan Rennie, the head of the Yale School of Public Health. You got into a back and forth with her. I'm with you.
Oh, I listened to her yesterday. It was a great interview.
She was great. And she doesn't believe that you're right, even though I do. We should show the bodies with the permission of the parents for kids who are shot. Julia Kayam talks about it all the time. John Rosenthal about, like those kids in San Diego. Same thing with this. When you see the videos of the stars you worship when you were little boys and girls who are 40 years old or 50 years old, who don't know where they are committing violence. Not everybody, but a lot of people. Parents really, this is a really important story.
And I
hope people will read it.
I would say it goes beyond just the mental, the extreme mental trauma where maybe, you don't, if you're like, I always think of Jim McMahon. Right, like Jim McMahon is quarterback of the Bears in the 80s. You see him now. Sometimes he goes places. He basically has dementia. He's got to only be, in his 60s. Maybe early 70s. But I would say also, and I always say this too, you talk to a guy like Ted Johnson, and I always go back to Ted because I work with him.
He's one of the early ones.
He's fabulous.
And he's he played linebacker for the Patriots in their early Super Bowl years. And he will tell you about the injuries he endured and this substance abuse and how he went bankrupt and he had to build his life back up. Those stories are also common. And he doesn't.
He also tells a story about how the coaches, one in particular, were not that interested in hearing about it.
Nope, they didn't care. They didn't want to hear about it.
Who was the head coach?
Bill Belichick.
Bill Belichick.
His Twitter, if you look at Ted's Twitter bio, it does say axe to grind with Bill Belichick. But he's angry that they didn't look out for his best interest. And also, his kids don't. His son does not play football. His son played soccer.
There's a great thing in the Daily Today, my favorite podcast, about this very subject. And they have a
companion piece on the New York Times. We talked about it a couple weeks ago.
And this young man who kills himself is a verbal letter to his parents about the demons in his head. It's heartbreaking. Anyway, Trenny Casey, thank you very much.
Bringing
that to Trenny Casey, anchor reporter.
Happy holidays, you guys. Happy New Year.
NPR contributor. Coming up after the news, our media maven, Sue O'Connell, is here to give us the latest on lying Republicans, Giuliani, George Santos, and more. She's next.
And today only, we're taking just a little time to ask for your end-of-year support for GBH. We count on listener contributions to keep the fact-based news you trust on the air all year long. So please take a moment, reflect on how important it was to have GBH in 2023, and then give as generously as you can. You can go online with your support at gbhnews.org or call us at 888-897-9424. And good morning to you. I'm Mark Hohn. I'm joined by Zach Finn.
20 contributions is what we're looking to receive in the next 7 minutes. And by giving right now, you're going to help pay for your listening into the new year. And you'll also help us stay on track for this one-day fund drive. Please make your end-of-year gift right now. It will make such a difference. That's 20 contributions in the next 7 minutes. gbhnews.org or 888-897-9424.
Think back on 2023. And if you had weekly, if not daily visits with Jim and Marjorie, then this day of fundraising, it's all all about you. You count on Boston Public Radio to keep you ahead of the news while providing a very good dose of humor all at the same time. There's nothing like it on the air, and it stays that way only with your support. We're appealing to our Jim and Marjorie fans right now. Take a couple of minutes, put a value on all that you've received from BPR, and give what your budget allows at 888-897-9424, or go online, look for the donate button at gbhnews.org.
And support GBH right now, and we're going to thank you with a ticket to a virtual wine tasting with expert traveler and author Rick Steves. Your ticket includes 6 small bottles of wine, plenty for 2 people, shipped to your door. Save the date, Tuesday, February 6th, beginning at 7 p.m. online and in your home. You'll also receive the 89.7 GBH wine key. Enjoy wine tasting instruction, conversation, interactive trivia, and an enjoyable evening with Rick Steves along with a professional sommelier. Support GBH by signing up as a sustaining member at $12.50 a month to secure your ticket. gbhnews.org, or give us a call, 888-897-9424.
This one-day membership drive has been going really well this morning, and to help us stay on track this hour, we're looking for 20 contributions in the final 5 minutes of the hour. 20 contributions in by noontime. We're hoping to hear from you. It'll help to pay for your listening in the new year, and you'll also help us stay on track, as I mentioned, for this one-day drive. Make your end of gift now. It will make such a big difference. Again, 20 contributions, 5 minutes to go. 888-897-9424, online at gbhnews.org.
This is a one-day fund drive to raise money so that GBH can continue to keep you informed on the issues facing our communities and our country. 2024 is just around the corner, and the news is not going to let up. So I'm asking you to please make your end-of-year contribution to help pay for your listening into the new year. gbhnews.org, or 888-897-9424.
And with your support of GBH today, you'll be entered to win a $1,000 LL Bean gift card. Yes, $1,000. That is just enough to buy anything practically that LL Bean has to offer. Check it out. Skis, snowshoes, that kayak, maybe some adventure experience, an outdoor experience up in Maine that they offer. You can go crazy with $1,000. Make your show of support. We'll throw your name in the hat, and you might be the lucky winner. This you don't have to give to be entered. We certainly hope you will. And here's how you do it. 888-897-9424, online at gbhnews.org.
As you consider your end-of-year charitable giving, please remember that GBH is a nonprofit radio station. Think of GBH in the same way you think about other nonprofits that contribute to the cultural life of our community. Then take 2 minutes to give. All we need is your name, contact information, how much you want to give, and how you want to pay. It's really easy, but it makes a world of difference. 888-897-924 or gbhnews.org.
That number again is 888-897-9424, or again, go online at gbhnews.org. And with your support of $12.50 a month on our Sustainer plan, we will say thanks with this great offer. It's a French wine tasting event, online event with none other than Rick Steves. If you're a fan of Rick Steves, you've seen his show, you know you've seen him. He knows his way around France and around some wine country, and it's going to be a great time. We'll send you with your support the ticket to the event, 6 small bottles of wine, enough for a couple of people. You could have a little party and enjoy the event. It's on Tuesday, February 6th, beginning at 7 p.m. If you're a Jim and Marjorie fan, they are a Rick Steves fan, so everybody's in on the party here. It's a French wine tasting with Rick Steves. It's a virtual event, yours for $12.50 a month on our Sustainer plan. 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org.
And we're down to 15 contributions in the next couple of minutes. That's what's needed here to stay on track. We are well positioned to meet the overall goal, but it's important to meet this hour's goal to ensure we can end the drive successfully this evening. 15 contributions left to go. Every gift makes a huge difference. gbhnews.org or 888-897-9424.
And you know, GBH's most important source of funding is listener contributions, and your donation is more important than ever. We know not everyone can give right now, but if you have the means, please make a contribution. All gifts really are welcome, and your support will help us maintain our service to you at a time when it is needed the most. Online, look for the donate button at gbhnews.org or call us at 888-897-9424.
Every day you hear the difference on GBH, the in-depth and unbiased news, the thoughtful and civil conversations. the stories that are told in a way that only GBH can tell them. It's truly the news that matters. If you've never given before, now is the time to invest in GBH. It's your support that ensures we can cover the issues, chase down the facts, and keep you up to date each day. Choose a monthly amount. Maybe that's $5, $10 a month, and become a new sustaining member of GBH right now. gbhnews.org or 888-897-9424, and thank you.
Welcome to hour number 2 of Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at facebook.com/GBH News and youtube.com/GBH News. Hi,
I'm
Jim.
just looking at you, by the way. That television camera with the traffic going down Boylston Street, that's a pretty nice little image there.
Very nice. I have my lipstick on. Put my lipstick on.
Whatever. We're joined now by attempted coyote attack survivor. She's not an attempted survivor. She is a survivor. Our media maven, local woman, Sue O'Connell. Sue is co-publisher of Big Witness in the South End News.
You can clap.
Not
Go
yet.
right ahead.
No. Hold it. Please hold it. Thank you.
No, go
Co-host of NBC 10 Boston's At Issue every Sunday at 11:30. Following Meet the Press. Now you may applaud her.
Yeah, you may clap.
Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. But look, I finally got my clock from Paul.
Paul from
Oh, my
Worcester.
goodness,
Whoa, that is
Worcester.
gorgeous.
Paul from
Finally
That's
got
all
my pen.
handmade, by the way.
Yes.
Do you know that?
Yes.
And a pen.
He says in the letter that he
Was
thinks
this
his dad and my mom knew each other due to their carny ways. So we'll have
There
to
you
find
go.
that
True?
out. But thank you.
Wow.
I don't know. We'll find out.
Yeah, he's
Okay,
a
we
great.
will find some
Also,
beauty.
I'd like to make an announcement in the spirit of Clarence Thomas. I'm not making enough money doing this. So if you want to continue to have me do this,
You
you
believe
can
this?
both make a contribution to GBH and you can go to my GoFundMe page. And no, I'm only kidding.
That's right.
What a couple. Insurrectionist and a grifter as we started the show.
Well,
Okay, so
speaking of an
America.
Oh, that's great. And a
insurrectionist
grifter. Yeah.
Here is Rudy Giuliani talking to reporters last week after hearing in his defamation trial. Now, he has been, $148 million is the fee that the court has said he's responsible for. Nonetheless, he defended his debunked allegations against 2 Georgia state election workers. Here he is.
But everything I said about them is true.
Do you regret what you did to?
Of course I don't regret it. I told the truth. They were engaged in changing votes.
There's no proof of that.
Oh, you're damn right there is. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
Oh, my
That's what they
God.
said for months and months and months. Stay tuned.
Yep.
So now they're finding these 2 women who were harassed out of their houses, death threats. They couldn't go anywhere. A mother and daughter
Ruby
accused them
Freeman
of
and
passing
Shay Moss.
drugs between them, and actually they were passing a ginger mint between them.
Yeah.
Now they're saying that they got to go after him again to get him to shut up.
So this is very similar to the Trump defamation case with Eugene Carroll, where as soon as the decision was made that he was liable for just the defamation part, he immediately went out and started
Defamed
defaming her
her
again, and now she's suing him again. And Giuliani and all of them are in the same boat. I mean, the reality of them actually getting any real money from him is probably low.
Yep.
I mean, let's just be real. People are still waiting for O.J. Simpson to pay. So
Wait till he finds the killers. by the
Right.
way.
Well,
That's
he does
gonna
that. That's going to be a big day. But how much is Rudy going to be able to pay them? What has he got to lose here? If I'm looking at this objective from the absolute evilness of what he's doing to these 2 women and continuing to torture these public servants who want nothing more than to count the ballots, to those nice people who are there working behind the scenes, he's going to continue to defame them so he can continue to fundraise. And he's never going to have to pay them more than he's ever going to have. So, I mean, it's just a sick situation.
If things go as planned, he will hopefully go to jail in Georgia for the rest of his life, which I think is you don't think there's a decent shot that happens? I do.
I would like to think that everyone who's supposed to go to jail is going to go to jail. I don't know.
President Trump cannot pardon either President Trump or Giuliani, even if he's reelected, God forbid, in 2024.
So we'll see what happens.
The scene of Giuliani, I think the photograph when he does die someday, should be him lying on the bed in repose in that Borat scene.
Oh, God.
One of the foulest things ever. So speaking of that, can we discuss sex in politics?
I would love to.
Let's start with...
you want to talk about the Massachusetts State House and the little room upstairs that some people have had sex in over the years? Look at the shocked faces here. Yes,
Wait a second.
ladies and
Like who?
gentlemen.
Who?
I don't want to name names.
Do you know who?
I know a couple of people
Like
over
who?
the past 40,
Like who?
50
I thought that
years.
was the nursing room. Something else been going on in there?
No,
it's nursing in quotes,
Yes,
I think
yes,
it is.
Yes.
Right across the street from where
Well,
Scott...
by the way, when Cellucci was Governor Cellucci, there was his chief of economic affairs who was accused, we don't know if it's true or not, of having sex on a table in a hearing room, which is a perfect segue to the guy from the Senate who, not allegedly, because we all saw the video. We saw the video from behind, I should say, which is really rather something.
You can see it too.
I shouldn't have said that, I Well, who is this guy, and what was he allegedly? Everybody's entitled to fun.
So, the headline is basically Senate staffer caught filming gay sex tape in Senate hearing room.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, it was sadly broken by the Daily Caller, but it actually absolutely is real. It apparently happened on the dais right next to Amy Klobuchar and Chris Coons.
Well, they were not there.
No, they weren't there. Nobody was there. The person responsible, his name is Aidan Mays Serposky.
Yeah.
He is an aide to Democrat of Maryland, Ben Cardin.
No, he was an aide
He's
to
no
Ben
longer.
Cardin, correct.
And this video, there were 2 people engaged. I believe one person recording it. Just the norm. Happens every day.
Happens every day.
And it was posted to the political gay group, which again is an existing thing.
Really?
If you've ever been on... the fun thing about going to Washington, D.C. in the 1990s
what was it?
is you would go to DuPont Circle, where a lot of the LGBTQ folks would be, and there would be 1,000 closeted Republican male staffers in the room. So there's a lot of sex happening in politics, just so you know for the record. So anyway, this was posted, and this guy, of course, I hope hires a lawyer and can defend himself. It's public space, Jim, and nobody was there. I mean,
that's right.
The definition
on the podium.
Worse things have happened in the Senate in the past couple of years.
They probably have.
That's true. Remember the toga parties? I'm dating myself. Remember the toga
Tom Finner
parties
in
up
the
in
House of
Beacon Hill?
Representatives, sure.
Where they were all wearing
Late
togas
at
and
night.
running around and shaving their legs. That was an odd
And I
thing.
also just want to say, if this were a Hallmark
or shaving each
rom-com,
other's legs.
a Hallmark rom-com, holiday movie, it would just be more romantic that they had sex. I mean, all of this plot of Scandal, the great TV show, was about having sex at the Lincoln Memorial and stuff.
It
So,
was?
whatever. Was anybody hurt?
Well, we don't know.
We don't know.
Now, can you maybe spell backwards one of the people who was in that little tiny room at the State House in Beacon Hill?
We'll see. Maybe Friday night.
Is it
I'll
somebody
have a
we
couple-
know?
I'm sure it's someone you know. A lot of
Really?
staffers. You have young staffers working
do.
late hours.
They got to do something.
They got to do something. It's like Donna Brazile once said before the whole Me Too movement in one of her books. Donna Brazile, who ran Al Gore's campaign,
he
and
did.
you can see
She
her, I
did.
think, on Fox. She's
Yeah.
the liberal on Fox.
Yeah.
If the kids on the campaign aren't having sex with each other, it's not going well.
Well, you know what that's sort of like? Remember, what's the name of the woman who wrote the book about hot dogs, talking about having sex in the Wienermobile?
Right, The
Wienermobile.
Jamie Loftus, thank you, Aiden.
That's what they named
that
it, going across the
fabulous
country.
book. Did you interview
Yes,
her?
I did
How
interview her,
great
but I
is-
read the book. It's
She
a
was
great
very
book.
talented.
Yes.
She did a great podcast about Lolita. It's really good.
Yeah. So anyway, people
Imagine
are having sex everywhere.
in the Wienermobile, though.
Yeah, I've been
That's
told
what
that
it's for, the Wienermobile.
A few of my offices occasionally, for some reason, some people have had sex on my desk and thought it was funny
That's nice.
to do it.
You
So
know,
there
speaking
go.
of that,
You forgot to mention
did you
Gidget
guys,
Churchill.
when I was on vacation...
Gidget Churchill.
What?
She's the one who pulled her shirt up.
But that was like 400 years
No,
ago.
I was around 400 years ago.
That was on the front page of the Boston Herald.
Front page of Boston Herald was a big scoop. Yeah, that was when the Republican
Peter Bluth.
Peter, that's right. Peter, the State
at a mass
Airport
board,
Authority.
too.
Boy,
Yeah.
we are
Or
in
mass
the
board,
Wayback
yeah.
Machine
Yeah,
now.
okay,
As we are.
let's forget it. We don't have to go way back. Did you guys, when I was off last week, discuss that fabulous couple in Florida? Speaking of,
Of course.
yes,
the
we did.
Zieglers.
Of course, the Zieglers.
He's the chair of the
Okay.
Florida Republican
Yes.
Party. They want to dump him.
Yes.
He's not leaving.
And she,
his wife is
Moms for
Liberty.
Anti-gay, anti these naughty books in the school, but mostly anti-gay.
Yeah.
But not
apparently
anti-threesome, so
she's
she's not a
anti-
hypocrite.
Yeah, that's the new slogan. Don't say gay. Now it's don't say threesomes down
I
in
didn't know that.
Florida.
Is that true?
Yeah, and because everyone's making fun of this
Yes.
woman and her husband, she's very sanctimonious, except when it comes to herself.
Yeah, the Zieglers, who, again, I don't want to kink shame, whatever consenting adults.
Kink shame?
whatever
Okay.
people want to do, and they're
Of course, in their
consenting
own time.
adults. I'm
If
all
it's
for it.
consenting.
But it would be really a problem if you're out saying, don't say gay.
Exactly.
Don't teach about LGBTQ history in classrooms. And then you and your husband are engaging in a three-way with another woman, which I said last week, by definition, kind of means you're a little gay. Just saying. He has been accused of raping this woman, assaulting
I
this
know that.
woman, because his wife didn't show up for their next appointment. Every year, I guess, they meet with her. And she didn't show up, and he's accused of raping her. So he's the state Republican Party chairperson in
He's
Florida.
not leaving.
He's not
They
going to
cut
leave.
his salary to $1 a year.
She's on the school board.
Yeah, school board.
Is of one of the counties, and
Yes.
she's not leaving. And they're both continuing to take this high moral authority that they're going to tell you what you can do and tell you what history your kids can and cannot be taught. Meanwhile, they're having threesomes, and he's being accused of.
They should have sex with the Senate staffer.
If
I mean,
they
how
had-
great would that be for the two
If they
stories
had
to come
sex
together?
in the
so to
Senate,
speak?
it might be better
That'd
off.
be fabulous. So we're talking to Sue O'Connell. Can I make a suggestion?
What?
Why don't we break now rather than having to do what we did with Trenny? We're in the middle of the story. Yeah.
Okay.
So let's take a break
now.
and then we'll come
Yeah,
back.
we're going to take a quick break because it is pledge time here, the Giving Week here at GBH. We'll be right back with more conversation with Sue O'Connell, our media maven. You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 live from the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News and facebook.com/GBH News.
So here's the number. Write it down or just dial it, 888-897-9424, or you can give online at gbhnews.org. It is fast and it is important. And if you can afford or so inclined to do $12.50 a month or $150 all at once, you get to go to this wine thing, this Taste of France, a wine tasting with one of our favorite guests and a really good person, Rick Steves, maybe the most important travel writer in the world. Included in that is one of the great storytellers. He also loves people. Do you know
He
that?
does.
He really loves ordinary, wonderful
Lifts
people.
your spirits.
He does. In any case, for $150, you get to go to this wine thing. You get 6 small bottles of wine delivered to your door. What happened? Can you put that thing back up, that guy that texted who just bought it? It's a wonderful note about giving it as a gift. And you can do that at 88. Here it is. Hi, you two. We gave the wine tasting to some dear friends in Ohio for Christmas. My sister and brother-in-law will be joining us here in North Attleboro, Zoom call before and after. We're all taking a Rick Steves Heart of France tour in June. It's a perfect way to support GBH, you and Rick. Let the wine tasting begin. Happy holidays, Marianne and Dan. Thanks for the note and thanks for the contribution.
So that's kind of cool.
It's a great idea.
They'll be doing it with their friends simultaneously. That is pretty neat.
And they gave a gift to their friends in Ohio.
That's right.
That's what we've come upon. Is that, while it's a wonderful thing for you, your family, your lover, whatever it is, it's also great for someone you want to give a gift to at 888-897-9424 or gbhnews.org. And most importantly, this is a one-day fundraiser, one-day pledge. Do not wait till tomorrow, which we all do. If you're going to do it today.
Okay, here's Dennis from Watertown. Awesome programming with a mix of local, national, and international news. Thank you for the great work you do. Thank you, Dennis in Watertown. Here's Diane from Chelmsford. You see her? She says, loves Jim and Marjorie especially. Thank you, Diane.
No, wait a second. Did she mean love Jim and then comma and Marjorie especially?
That's essentially.
Or love Jim and Marjorie especially?
That's essentially it.
Yeah,
I don't know,
I'm afraid
Jim.
that is it. I think it was a Marjorie especially
It might have been both of
thing.
us especially.
I don't
Okay.
think so.
GBH is my lifeline to the world and local news. I adore the programming and have it on most of the day. Thank you for all you do. That's Melinda from Newburyport. We love reading those things because it makes you feel really good, because we get some texts that make us feel really bad, so it's nice to get the ones that make you feel really good as well. Denise from Wayland says, I appreciate the investigating that is done. Love the station. So there you go. So if you feel that way and you would like to help go fund what goes on here, we get, as we always say, nearly all our contributions from listeners like you and from foundations, but it's private funding, very little government funding, and that's why we do these drives, because we would have commercials if we didn't have the drives. 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marjorie, and we're talking to noted local woman Sue O'Connell. Does anybody even know what the reference is anymore?
People stop and yell it at me.
Local woman?
Yes.
They do not. It's not
I swear on my mother's soul,
That
they
is
do.
great.
They yell out local
that
woman.
made my
local
day.
Woman, yes.
I love that.
I swear to God.
And we're
happened
streaming
like
at
3 times.
youtube.com and facebook.com/GBH
Everywhere.
News.
So in another, you know what drives me crazy about a lot of what the Republican bills do?
Where to start?
It's saying that as politicians, they know more than physicians know, the American Medical Association, the American Pediatric Association, the American Psychological Association. I mention that because they're trying to ban all this treatment for trans teens and children as if they know more. But anyway.
Well, it's what they're running on, this culture
I know,
stuff
but isn't that
to
incredible?
punish the most vulnerable people in our society.
They think they know more. What's better for your children.
It's all about politics. They don't give a damn about the children
I know
or
that,
the parents.
Jim, but that is their posturing.
That is their posturing. That is correct.
So in any case, that's the bad news about what's going on around the country in terms of restrictions on LGBTQ.
Actually, can we not talk? Let's not.
Okay, let's go right to the good news.
Let's talk about what's going on in the Catholic. We yesterday talked. The story broke yesterday, obviously, about the Catholic Church and the Vatican deciding to give blessings to same-sex relationships. We talked to the two revs about it. Irene Monroe, who's a buddy of all three of ours, it was not wild about it. For a little balance, here is Marianne Duddy-Burke, who's been on our show, by the way. Oh, and she was on Morning Edition this morning, NPR. She's the executive director of Dignity USA, and here's what she had to say.
To me, I think it's incredibly significant that the leaders of our church are finally recognizing that the love and commitment between two women, two men, two people of the same gender can carry that same holiness and sacredness that any other relationship can have.
So where are you on this, Sue O'Connell? Well, that was an evil laugh if I ever heard one.
I agree with both Marianne Duddy and Reverend Irene Monroe. But Marjorie, let me ask you, prior to the Pope saying that same-sex couples could be blessed by a priest, what other things could be blessed in the Catholic Church?
Animals.
Animals could be blessed. The fleet could be blessed. Cars can be blessed. You could basically just go through your tchotchke cabinet and bring it into church and ask a priest to bless it, and they will bless it. What they would not bless is human beings of same-sex couples, okay? So just to put into perspective just how ridiculous it is that they were not allowed to bless same-sex couples when they could bless your gerbil on Pets Day when you bring your pets into the Catholic Church. If I went in there with a spouse, I would not be blessed. Having said that, to probably what Reverend Irene Monroe said, it is an incredibly significant step forward that this Pope, who has been moving forward, I wouldn't even say inching, I think that folks might disagree with me, but I think he has been taking significant steps forward to be more open and more loving and more accepting of everybody. Remember his famous quote on the plane, "Who am I to judge about same-sex couples?" So I think it's incredibly significant. It sends a message to the rest of the Catholic Church, to people who are Catholic. It's a great message, obviously, to LGBTQ Catholics that they can still work towards belonging. But again, I could get Maud blessed before I could get my same-sex marriage.
Maud would be your dog.
Maud, my dog, blessed before that. So I'm hopeful about it.
That's very true. But Dignity, the organization just mentioned, that's mainly gay Catholics who feel unwelcome in the Catholic Church, and they have their alternative masses, basically, and they've been around forever, and they do great work.
Yeah. So, I think it's a great step forward, and also do not underscore or do not ignore what this means to the conservative bishops in the Roman Catholic business. They are crazed about this, and this is another war between the conservative bishops in the Roman Catholic business and the Pope, who is trying to move the church forward.
You know what I thought, just to add something on here, that the Pope had lunches with trans women in Rome, because people used to talk,
those women from that Italian town like 20 miles away.
Way back when we used to talk about how if you knew somebody gay, your enthusiasm for legalizing or getting rid of these ridiculous laws against gay people. I think it's the same thing with trans people.
Yeah, it is. And he's also been opening, his entire time as Pope, he's been opening up the Vatican for meals. He's had homeless people come in to eat on a regular basis, and the trans folks. He is, I think, trying to, at least in my adulthood, I think he is the most Jesus-like Pope that we have had in terms of acting in a way that you would expect Jesus would act.
Okay, so let's talk about the most un-Jesus-like former member of Congress, George Santos. Now, could you describe I never heard of Z-Way. Is that
Z-Way,
Can
yeah.
you explain who Z-Way is before we
gosh.
play a little sound and talk about
Z-Way
those?
is a former, probably still Instagram star who does these outrageous, they're not like insulting, but this really in your face. She's a great, colorful character. She's great on social media. She's got a great personality, and she asks these outrageous questions to her interviewees. And she's, I'm not sure what the show is on. Is it on Showtime? She's got a TV show that she now has been interviewing people. If you want to see a really funny meeting of this sort of ironic, critical style, she interviewed Ann Leibovitz.
Annie Leibovitz.
Annie
The
Leibovitz.
photographer?
Not Annie
Photographer.
Leibovitz, Fran Leibovitz.
Oh, Fran Leibovitz. Oh, the
Love
great
her.
writer.
President of the Union.
Right, last year interviewed
Fran
her.
Dreschler.
That's Fran
President
Dreschler.
Oops.
But Fran Leibovitz is a great writer
We'll
about New York
absolutely get it.
stuff.
Who did Fran Leibovitz do the thing with Martin Scorsese? I don't mean
Yes.
the thing.
Yes.
Martin Scorsese, they're best friends, and they
Yes.
did that
The
whatever
Walking
thing.
New York kind of
Do I
thing.
have that one right?
You
I
got
hope?
that right.
Okay,
Anyway,
so it's on Showtime.
So Z-Way on the Showtime show.
How do you say her name?
Z-Way.
Z-Way.
Now I'm confused.
Z-Way.
Z-Way.
Thank you.
Like freeway.
Whatever,
I
thank
got
you.
lost. Z-Way.
Z-Way,
Yeah, it's a great show.
Here's a little sound from this interview, and there are apparently a lot of great moments, as you say. Here's just one where Z-Way plays a game of Would You Rather?
Would you rather shoplift from Sephora or Ulta?
Neither. I don't do petty crimes.
White collar. House of Representatives or House of Gucci?
You know what? House of Representatives.
Really?
Yes. Slayed the Boots House down, House of Representatives every day.
Well, not every day, since last Friday.
Oh, whatever. Tomato, tomato, who cares?
Did you watch the whole thing?
I did. George Santos, that of course is the gift that keeps on giving. He's finally found his home, so we're happy about that.
Now, I came close for Christmas for buying an unnamed person, Marjorie, a cameo for $200 of George Santos doing a greeting to Marjorie. That's the business he's in now. But then I just couldn't bring even though I thought you'd enjoy it, I couldn't bring myself to giving him $200 after what he did.
I'm glad you passed.
I did.
Well, you get more value.
So I actually bought it for Jamie instead.
Yeah, there you go.
No,
Jamie, our producer.
So he's going to make a ton of money.
You know what? He also may actually go to jail.
Well, that's that's actually a very good
Unlike
point.
my concern about Rudy
No, that's a
Giuliani,
good
I
point.
think he actually may go to jail. I think
about
he was just in the wrong business. I think he was they used to say, who was it? Jay Leno said that politics is showbiz for ugly people, and George Santos has figured out that he's really still very good looking compared to those people. So, the great thing he said, I think Z-Way asked him, when are you going to go away? And he said, why do you keep inviting me on? Why do you keep talking to me? I'm providing content. He's actually giving us something now, Jim. He's giving us some holiday joy. So he's actually earning his money as opposed to just taking money and buying Botox.
Yeah. It really, it is
You're
pretty
torn.
amazing.
You're a little
No, I'm not torn
Okay.
at all. I'm just saying it's amazing. The guy could be maybe the most disgraced. That's a stupid
Compared to
thing
what,
to say.
right?
Exactly.
Right?
He's not even close to the
Like,
most
if-
disgraced.
Imagine how much life would be better if Trump had just stayed on, Celebrity Apprentice. I mean, the problem is when they start thinking they actually can take this grift and it's going to be more fun in the government, which it isn't. It's not more fun unless you're having sex at the State House, in which case then it is more fun.
Okay.
This is not since you brought up Trump, we're maybe 2+ months away from him being the nominee of the Republican
That's right.
Party.
I'm not sure.
Right? What does that mean?
Listen,
why? Because Nikki Haley is
I'm
surging
saying
in New
this.
Hampshire.
I am saying that this is this 2024 is the upside down land.
Meaning?
Nothing has ever happened before this that's happening now. We've got a prior president in our lifetimes who's running for president. We've got a prior president running for president who's got how many indictments?
91.
Right? 91 and then 4 court cases coming up. We have an ancient president who's probably going to have the most successful presidency of our lifetime when all is said and done.
And he has only 34% approval rate because no one has any idea what he's done.
And you've got the New Hampshire primary season, which has blown up and is unlike any other New Hampshire primary season in recent history. In Iowa, which is an absolute mess since Pete Buttigieg won the Democratic caucus sort of last time. So none of the things, if this were a sport, it's like you show up to watch your favorite team play, a sport you've been watching your whole life, and everything is different.
But let me be clear. The reason you're saying this is just to say it's going to be a chaotic year, or because you think Trump is not as guaranteed a nominee
I
as
think Trump is not as guaranteed a nominee.
Just
as
because
it
everything is
appears.
so volatile.
Exactly. Not because
Okay.
he couldn't get the votes, not because he doesn't have the MAGA cult supporting him. I just think that there's also a shift, and I've been listening to Mitt Romney and Liz Cheney and some other of these traditional Republicans saying, I would be endorsing candidates, but it's the kiss of death.
And I don't know if you know what they have in common is Liz Cheney lost her re-election by about 40 points, and Mitt Romney is primarily not running because
Right.
he would have lost his election by 40 points.
But
So
this
does
is
that
like
say
the
something to
whole
you?
plot of Game of Thrones. This is exactly
is?
how it ended in the end.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay, you have to rewatch Game of Thrones, Jim.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
We've been speaking
It's
with
great to
Medium
see you,
Maven
Sue.
Great to see you. I'll see you Friday.
You will? Oh, right, you're sitting with me.
Of
Right,
Bay Windows and South End News. That's right. She'll be sitting in with Jim on Friday.
That's
I have the
right.
day off on Friday. Sue is co-host of NBC 10 Boston's At Issue every Sunday at 11:30. Thank you very, very
By
much.
the way, I forgot to say, you know what Zoe told us? You know where Z-Way is from? Lawrence. Oh. There you go.
Local
the
gal.
dreaded local angle.
Local gal.
Yep.
Okay, coming up after a quick pledge break, Frontline's James Jacoby zooms in on his latest, Netanyahu, America and the Road to War in Gaza. It's another great documentary from the great folks at Frontline. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library and streaming on Facebook.com/GBH News and YouTube.com/GBH News. Jose from Boston says this is his first time donating. Thanks for all the hard
Oh, that's
work and
great.
for sharing all the facts. So important. You are the best. Monroe from Jamaica Plain likes the one-day fundraiser. So do we. I would think we would like the one-day fundraiser too. Wouldn't you say so, Jim?
I like them all.
Yeah, you like them all. Okay.
No,
Tammy
of course, one day's.
from Haverhill, I look forward to listening to Jim and Marjorie. I love the combination of news, informative guests, and a lot of laughs in between. So thank you very much for people that send in these very nice comments. These are people that, I should say, these are people that left these comments when they called to donate. It's just a one-day fund drive, and we hope if you are in a position to do it, you can donate what you can. We are supported by listeners like you, and we really appreciate everybody who does listen to the station because it's on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We have a lot of great programming all day and all night long. So the number is 888-897-9424, 888-897-9424. You can give online at gbhnews.org. And as I always say, if we did not do this a couple of times a year, we would have to do commercials, which are really horrible. I think we can all agree. Don't you fly through all the commercials now on television? If you record everything, whoever watches
Of course you do.
commercials
If you
anymore.
can. You can't do it on every station.
Can't do it on every
It's
station,
very
but if you
depressing.
can, you can, because nobody likes commercials, and that's what we'd be subjecting you to if we didn't do these occasional fundraisers. 888-897-9424 or gbhnews.org.
And as Marjorie uses the term enticement, the gift, the whatever, if you make a contribution of $150 or $12.50 per month. And by the way, you can give whatever you can. If you're not interested in the Rick Steves thing or can't afford it or don't want to spend that much money, give what you can at 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. For $150 or $12.50 a month, you get this a ticket to this great Taste of France, this virtual wine tasting with Rick Steves, who is unlike anybody else in what he does. It's Thursday, February 6th at 7 p.m. online in your home. 6 bottles of wine. These moderate-sized bottles of wine are sent to your house. The wine was terrific the 2 times
It
we've
is
done it. By
really
the way.
good wine.
Really high-quality stuff. And you get to spend an evening with Rick telling stories and a sommelier who will do a little educating kind of thing too. So it's 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. If you like what you hear on the station any of the 7 days a week, this is your opportunity to show it with a contribution. 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marge Regan. We're live at the library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News and facebook.com/GBH News. We're joined now on Zoom by James Jacoby. James, the director of Frontline's newest documentary. It's airing tonight. We saw it over the last couple of days. Marjorie and I did, and it is terrific and important and, to say the least, timely. It airs tonight at GBH2 and PBS at 10. Netanyahu, America, and the Road to War in Gaza. James, great to see you again. Welcome.
Hi, James. Is James there? He's motioning to us.
Sort of there.
He seems to be motioning.
He's waving.
I'm not
He's
sure.
whatever. There he is.
Can you hear us, James?
That is James, apparently.
Yes.
Not. Oh, hi,
Oh,
James.
great,
How
okay.
are you? Good to
We weren't
see you.
sure if you could
and
hear us.
congratulations on the film. It's great.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for joining us. So a lot of this is tracing the career of Benjamin Netanyahu. I'm going to play some sound. This is when Netanyahu was a lot younger, 43 years old, talking about the prospect of a Palestinian state in the wake of the Oslo Accords that were signed back in the 1990s with Bill Clinton. Here's Netanyahu.
The PLO Islamic State, 15 minutes from Jerusalem or 5 minutes from Tel Aviv, is a prescription not for peace, but for dangerous and renewed conflict.
So he wasn't keen on two states back then. He certainly isn't now. But talk about the trajectory, how he came to power when he was young, before we move on to this whole situation.
And describe what the Oslo Accords are for the few people who don't remember there, James, if you would.
Sure. So the Oslo Accords were basically the PLO at the time, the Palestine Liberation Organization, and the Israeli government decided that they were going to lay down arms and they were going to try to come to some sort of an agreement. And the Accords really just basically said, we're going to have a peace process. It didn't really lay out the exact plan. But, I mean, in everyone's mind, well, not everyone's mind, but in a lot of people's minds, it was going to end up in a two-state solution. The borders needed to be discussed, and the exact parameters of it needed to be discussed. But that was a major breakthrough. And as someone says to us, one of the negotiators there on the American side says, that was turning what was an existential problem into a political one. And I think that really resonates with me right now, because we have everybody kind of questioning the existence of Israel again. You've got people questioning the existence of Palestinians again. And in talking to this guy, Dennis Ross, who'd been an American negotiator, he's like, the conversation has turned back 30 years to pre-Oslo, where we had made huge strides at that point in time to kind of put aside the existential questions and sit down and have a political one. Now, of course, at the time, Netanyahu, who was in his early 40s, he'd been an ambassador to the U.S. from Israel. He was a really rising up-and-comer in the kind of right-wing Likud party in Israel. He was adamantly opposed to it, and he was part of a very big vocal group of Israelis who felt as though it was too great a security risk to give territory to the Palestinians. And especially what was being discussed in the early 90s at that point. And so he really became the face of the opposition.
One of the consequences, which people may not remember, was not only to launch the career of Netanyahu, who has remained adamant on the two-state solution. We'll talk in a minute about what he did with Qatar to make sure that there was never a two-state solution, is his criticism of it, in the minds of many, led to the assassination of one of the two signers of the Oslo Accords, Rabin from Israel. And this is really chilling sound.
Yeah.
This is Prime Minister Rabin's widow in an interview blaming Netanyahu for her husband's assassination. Then you'll hear a little from a former aide to Netanyahu.
I do blame them. The rally in Kikar Zion in Jerusalem that showed him in the uniform of a Nazi. So Mr. Bibi Netanyahu, now we can say from here to eternity that he didn't support it and didn't agree with it, but he was there, and he didn't stop it.
The attempt to pin on him the murder of the Prime Minister is a cheap political propaganda trick that was taken by his political opponents, mostly from the left, in order to delegitimize Netanyahu.
What was the perspective of the Israeli people on that divide about Netanyahu's culpability there, James Jacoby?
There was, of course, there was a big divide in Israel about the culpability of Netanyahu. And I think, but if you look back, and we do in the footage here of what the rallies were like that were in opposition to Oslo and that Netanyahu was leading, you see people in the crowds who were basically equating Rabin with being a Nazi.
Yeah.
They put him in in basically cartoonish form in drawings, wearing a keffiyeh, and so you see this frothing up of a very kind of dangerous resentment and mischaracterization of Rabin. And Netanyahu certainly was fanning those flames. I don't think that you can say he directly caused Rabin's assassination, but certainly was part of, it's incontrovertible evidence of his being there frothing up these crowds and basically saying that Rabin was, in his negotiations with Arafat, was bowing down to a terrorist. So that was obviously red meat for the sort of Israeli right at the time, and it's such a contentious issue and so emotional, and it did lead a right-wing Israeli Jew to assassinate Rabin.
Yeah, I mean, it's very, you really depict how frightening these rallies were in the piece too, and that no one was speaking out, or Netanyahu was not speaking out against them. I mean, they were extremely, extremely scary. So tell us what happens after this. So the Oslo Accords are shaken up, obviously, when Rabin dies. So what happens then with Netanyahu?
Well, he basically then, Clinton is obviously president, and Netanyahu runs for office, and he's running against Rabin's successor after Rabin is assassinated, Shimon Peres. And Peres, at the time of Rabin's assassination, was a bit ahead in the polls. And honestly, Bibi falls behind in the polls at that point because the Israeli public was a bit disgusted by his role, or his frothing up of the right that led to the assassination. And then Hamas bombs, starts a whole campaign of bombing at that point in time. This is right before the election. They bomb these, they killed, more than 50 Israelis in these bombings. It's just terrible, terrifying bombings in the heart of Jerusalem and elsewhere in the country. And it plays right into Bibi's message of safety. I'm going to be the one that keeps you secure. You can't negotiate with Palestinians. They're dead set on demolishing the state of Israel. And of course, Hamas has this concurrent rise, which they reflect the extremist view of the Palestinians. And they did not, their founding doctrine was they do not want Israel to exist. They want to exterminate the Jews there. And they also have no interest in negotiations. So they were at the same time looking to disrupt the peace process. But of course, as this dynamic always plays out, extremes feed one another. And so you see that Netanyahu win by a very small margin, the premiership, in part propelled because the Hamas bombings played into the fact that, he was going to keep Israel safe.
Well, and then later, as I mentioned a second ago, he returns the favor when Qatar is contemplating giving immense amounts of resources to Hamas. What does Prime Minister Netanyahu do?
Yeah, it's complex. Netanyahu's strategy in part was to say, look.
Sorry about that. Continue.
Sorry.
No, it's not you. It's us. Go ahead.
Okay. Was to say, we often just blame the Palestinians for not having a true negotiating partner, right? So there was the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank, and there was Hamas then that had taken over, won an election, and then took over in a coup in Gaza. And he always wanted to say, basically, we can't, who are we going to negotiate? We've got Hamas on one hand, and we've got the Palestinian Authority on the other. So he kind of strategically saw that a weakened Palestinian Authority in the West Bank and divided from Hamas in the Gaza Strip was sort of good for his strategy, that as long as they're divided, it's never going to work out as a two-state solution. And so he allowed Qatar, the wealthy Gulf state, to start funneling money into Gaza, ostensibly for assistance to Gazans. Some of that money, a lot of it did go to Hamas, building up their tunnel system and their weapons cache and everything like that, which is horrible. And yet he allowed it to happen. He didn't speak out against it, in part because he wanted it benefited him to some extent to have Hamas there. It's not that he was supporting Hamas.
Understood.
Qatar was supporting Hamas, and I think that distinction is important. But I think that strategically speaking, that's history might judge that quite harshly.
Okay, as a frontline guy, I know you understand these occasional pledge breaks, James Jacoby. We're going to take one right now. We're speaking with Frontline Director James Jacoby. We're going to keep talking about him of the rise of Benjamin Netanyahu. That conversation continues. Quick pledge break. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. We are broadcasting live at the Boston Public Library, streaming at facebook.com/GBH News and youtube.com/GBH News.
You know, when you think about the diversity of programming from PBS and NPR, we're talking to one of the great directors and contributors from Frontline, James Jacoby.
One of the great shows on television.
Without a doubt. And by the way, headquartered right across the street from us in Brighton. And then you go to one of our favorite guests, Rick Steves, who brings another part of the world, literally and figuratively, to your doorstep on radio and television. And you have an opportunity to spend 90 minutes to 2 hours with him and 6 fabulous bottles of wine at this Taste of France virtual wine tasting with Rick and with a sommelier. Margie and I have done it a couple of times.
It's great.
Sommeliers are great. They're smart. They're well-informed. They're funny. You learn a lot. You have great wine delivered right to your house, 6 medium-sized bottles of wine. This is Thursday, February 6th at 7 p.m. It's $150 or $12.50 a month at 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. As we said, not only is it a great gift for you to buy around Christmas time and then enjoy it in February, in the horrible cold month of February, but secondly, if you're not into it yourself, or whether you're into it or not, buy another one for a friend, as that couple from North Attleboro did for some friends or relatives in Ohio. And you do it by calling 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. And the wonderful thing that happens along with that is you contribute to a place that you obviously care a lot about, or you wouldn't be listening to me speak. Marjorie.
Oh, I thought we were done.
Well, let me tell you, we are done.
897-9424, gbhnews.org.
Let me tell you, Marjorie and I are really smooth. No one would ever say we were not. You're listening to Boston Public Radio live from the Boston Public Library, and we're talking with Frontline's James Jacoby on Frontline's latest Netanyahu, America and the Road to War in Gaza, premiering tonight on PBS.
So let's move forward to when Barack Obama was president. I had forgotten, you pointed out, James Jacoby, that he gave his first TV interview to an Arab network and talked about a two-state solution, talked about having Arabs and Muslims in his family. And Netanyahu, I guess, was appalled that his middle name was Hussein, Barack Hussein Obama. But talk about the interaction between the two of them.
Yeah, it was contentious. And I mean, these scenes that play out in the film are quite amazing to watch, because you really are seeing, you know, Obama, as you mentioned, Marjorie, he comes in and his first television interview is to an Arabic language television station. His first phone call is to Mahmoud Abbas, who was the president of the Palestinian Authority. And it was, he was trying to set a new tone. And there's this amazing scene where it's Netanyahu's first trip to the White House. It's very customary to invite the Israeli prime minister to the White House early in a term. And he comes, and basically Obama tells him that he's going to really say to Netanyahu and the Israelis that then take a hard line and say that they have to stop building settlements in the West Bank, which are, very controversial. And Netanyahu had never really been spoken to this way by an American president, and you see it unfold, and he's just pissed, and he's angry, and he's lost, and it sets, I mean, it couldn't have gone worse, and it sets the tone and tenor for their entire relationship, which was very, very frosty. And then there's a follow-up scene when, after Obama makes another announcement, Netanyahu comes back to the White House and to the Oval Office. It's all on camera, and he then lectures Obama on how things are done in the Middle East. And one, Dennis Ross, who I mentioned earlier, a longtime negotiator, said After the first meeting, that it was just, the second meeting, there's so much gall here, the gall of Netanyahu to stand up to a president in his own house.
Let me tell you something. If of all the dramatic footage in this film, the image of Barack Obama, no drama Obama, sitting in the Oval Office while he's being lectured by Netanyahu, not saying a word with his hand on his face, is about as telling as anything I've ever seen in film. It is just, what'd you take away from that image that was going on in that president's head, that president being Barack Obama?
Well, it's so funny you say that, because I've watched that scene so many times at this point, cutting this film, and each time I'm just astonished by it. Because you're seeing, someone earlier in the film said they walked away from another encounter between Netanyahu and an American president, and someone walked away and said, who's the superpower here?
Yeah,
that's great.
And so you get the sense in that scene, all these where you have Netanyahu saying lecturing Obama in the Oval Office, the press is there, and then he goes back to Israel and he basically campaigns on the fact that he's the one who's able to stand up to Obama. And it's a very interesting dynamic.
And then, of course, we get into the Trump era and Trump reversing 40 years of policy on settlements, two-state solution, of moving the capital to Jerusalem. But, one of the great ironies that comes out here, and we talk about it too, is the guy who ran as the candidate who will provide security to you obviously couldn't do it. And one of the ironies is the only reason he survived those massive protests around usurping constitutional authority when he's being prosecuted and the protests in the street is because of the attack he couldn't prevent. I mean, does it get any more perverse than that, James Jacoby? I'm not saying at all he'll survive in the long run, but he's at least surviving now, and the protests have been tamped down to nothing because he failed at securing his people, essentially, no?
Yeah, I mean, he is very unpopular. And I think the thing is that everyone in Israel is in such a state of shock still, and will be for a long time, about what happened on October 7th. And I don't think there's any way to overestimate that or overstate that. Of course, there's a lot of resentment and anger toward Netanyahu and toward the military and the intelligence community there for this atrocious failure. There's still considerable support for the war effort and for the war in Gaza. But it's what Netanyahu did do, and you have to give him credit for, given the political circumstances, is he put together a war cabinet there that even includes his political opponent.
That's true.
And so it's one very important thing for at least the Israeli unity in this endeavor. We can talk about the war in Gaza and how it's been executed and how horrible it is. But the fact of the matter is that for Israelis, Netanyahu, at least in that gesture, which is more than a gesture, in that action, putting that war cabinet together, has said this is beyond politics for the moment.
But you also talk about the hopelessness on the other side with what Trump did when he was president, with talking about Israel making peace with some Arab countries. You have a quote, and we'll play the sound in a second, from Khalid El-Gindi, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, of the Middle East Institute, on the blockade of Gaza after Hamas won the election back in 2006. Here it is.
The notion that you could keep 2 million people locked up indefinitely with no real economy, who are entirely dependent on Israel opening and closing the border to allow movement of goods and people in, where majority of the people are now impoverished, I think was not only absurd, but also quite cruel, because it depended on periodic, predictable eruptions of violence that from Israel's standpoint were acceptable.
I mean, obviously no one is going to condone the horrible massacre of Israelis by Hamas. On the other hand, the hopelessness you talk about does not lead to good outcomes.
Yeah. I mean, as you guys, we've we've talked so many times over the years about films that we've made here at Frontline, and there's something, we just did our final screening of this film that's airing tonight, and it's just such a devastating story to watch how this unfolds over 30 years, and how a lot of the decision, of course, to block off Gaza, the humanitarian crisis that's been going on there basically since 2008, the lack of good leadership on both sides. There's just, what we really wanted to highlight were all the points along the road where, you see this almost horrible inevitability of this conflict. And so, I continue to be touched by it and upset by it. And, that blockade, which I must mention was also, Egypt was part of that blockade. It wasn't just a unilateral Israeli decision. But it was devastating for Gaza. But from the Israeli perspective, on their border was Hamas, which is dead set on seeing Israel's destruction. So, they built the wall, which of course failed during October 7th attack. They had a major intelligence failure. But, we are asking the question as what was the road to this war in Gaza? And you have to say that the blockade was part of it and the devastating consequences of it.
Yet another fabulous, important film. Congratulations to you and your colleagues, James, and thanks for your time today as always.
Thank you for having me. And everyone give, because this is such a wonderful program. So thank you so much for having me.
You're a sweet guy.
Well,
Thank you,
yours
James
is a wonderful program. I mean, I have learned so much from watching Frontline, and the reporting and the bravery of the reporters and the detail you get is fantastic. Anyway,
thanks, James. See
we're
you soon.
speaking with James Jacoby, director of the latest Frontline movie, Netanyahu, America, and the Road to War in Gaza. It premieres tonight on PBS and GBH2 at 10 o'clock. You can also get it at pbs.org/frontline. James, thank you very much again. Okay, after this quick pledge break, Boston Globe travel writer Christopher Muther is here to chastise you into proper holiday travel behavior. He is next. Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH, broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library.
And James Jacoby is right when he says, please give right now. This is the season for giving. We're taking just a few minutes right now to ask for your gift to GBH. All of your GBH listening this year was made possible with listener contributions. And by giving now, you'll help us to cover the news the way you expect and the way you rely on in the new year. Please give right now online at gbhnews.org or call us 888-897-9424. Good afternoon. I'm Mark Cohen. He's Zach Finn.
We're looking for 25 contributions in the next 3 minutes. This is the last fund drive of the year, so please give right now and help to end it successfully this evening. I hope you'll take a moment to reflect on how much you relied on GBH in this last year and then give as generously as you can. All gifts are welcome. 25 contributions in the next 3 minutes. gbhnews.org or 888-897-9424.
Reporters, editors, producers, researchers, engineers, production assistants, desk assistants, all of these people, they have a role to play in the daily success of NPR and GBH and Boston Public Radio. And as a listener, you also play a part in that success. The money that you give helps fund the news each and every day. We're appealing to our Jim and Marjorie listeners. Please take a couple of minutes now and give what your budget allows. 888-897-9424 online at gbhnews.org.
And when you support GBH right now, we're going to thank you with a ticket to a virtual wine tasting with expert traveler and author Rick Steves. Your ticket includes 6 small bottles of wine, plenty for 2 people, shipped to your door. Save the date, Tuesday, February 6th, beginning at 7 p.m. online and in your home. You'll also receive the 89.7 GBH Wine Key. Enjoy wine tasting instruction, conversation, interactive trivia, and an enjoyable evening with Rick Steves along with a professional sommelier. Support GBH by signing up as a sustaining member at $12 $9.50 a month to secure your ticket. gbhnews.org or call 888-897-9424.
And right now we're down to 20 contributions left to raise in the final couple of minutes of this hour. 888-897-9424. Look back on 2023 and the amount of listening you've done with Jim and Marjorie and all the other programs that we feature here on GBH. Put a value on that and give what your budget allows. All gifts truly are welcome. It's a one-day fundraising drive, and we're counting on you to make that end-of-year gift right now. 888-897-9424. Online, gbhnews.org.
Information with a dose of humor. That's why you listen to Boston Public Radio. Whether Jim and Marjorie keep you company on your lunch break or while you're running errands, they talk about the issues that matter to you. Please support local conversations like this by giving right now. gbhnews.org or 888-897-9424.
And when you support GBH, you'll be entered to win a $1,000 LL Bean gift card. Yes, $1,000. That'll get you a lot of flannel, a lot of cozy slippers, maybe some outdoor gear if you're a skier or a hiker, outdoor camping gear. So much you can take advantage of with $1,000 at LL Bean. It's a special giveaway. We're encouraging you to give. You'll be entered to win. It's a special for today only on this one-day drive. It goes away at 7 o'clock, but you're listening now. Make your contribution now. I should point out you don't have to give to be entered. We certainly hope you will, and it's very easy to do. By going online, look for the donate button at gbhnews.org or call us 888-897-9424.
Consider the hours of news and information you received from listening to GBH this year, and then please make your end-of-year contribution. It is tax deductible and it takes just 2 minutes. We just need a little contact information and your preferred way to pay. And the money you give will keep GBH on your radio with the news you trust throughout the year. gbhnews.org or give us a call right now, 888-897-9424.
And when you support GBH, we'll thank you with a ticket to a virtual wine tasting with expert traveler and author and wine drinker Rick Steves. It's yours for $12.50 a month on our Sustainer plan. This ticket will include 6 small bottles of wine, plenty for a couple of folks, some friends of yours. You could have a little party. It'll be shipped right to your door. Save the date. It's on Tuesday, February 6th, beginning at 7 p.m. online and in your home. You can drink in the comfort of your own home. It promises to be a great event. It's Rick Steves, a wine tasting event on Tuesday, February 6th. $12.50 a month will get you a ticket for it. 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. We're live at the Boston Public Library, streaming at facebook.com/GBH News and youtube.com/GBH News. We're joined now at the library, well, obviously at the library, because I just said we're there, by Christopher Muther, who is the travel writer for the Boston Globe and a monthly BPR contributor, and we're lucky to have him. Hey, Christopher Muther, how are you?
I'm well. How are you, James?
Christopher Muther.
Well, excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Wonderful to see you both.
Wonderful to see you too. Well, let's start with the existential question of the year.
Which is?
Does Logan Airport really need 5 legal seafoods? You attacked that in your column.
It's so funny because I went through and talked about what's good and what's bad about Terminal E and what people fixated on was legal seafood. That's kind of what I did too, because there are 5 of them now.
Yeah.
1 for every terminal. Actually, B gets 2 legal seafoods. And I have, as I say in the story, I have no beef, chicken, or fish with legal seafoods. But it just feels like there's perhaps room for some more. Boston is more than legal seafood.
I would say that was rather petty on your part, I should say. but putting that aside, can you just describe? I have not been inside. I've only driven by. This is, I think,
it's the big
gorgeous.
red thing.
Do you describe the whole thing, if you would?
Well, the great thing about Terminal E is, I don't know if you are familiar, if you're not familiar with the old part of Terminal E.
It's international flights.
Yes, international flights. Really kind of low ceilings, kind of dark, really congested security TSA checkpoint where there's at best 3 lanes, and usually it's crew who is going by everybody who's waiting. And it's usually like the magic/disaster hours around 6 when everyone is trying to get to their flight, because there's a lot of evening flights that are international. So the great thing about the new Terminal E, the expansion, which is massive, and it's the kind of big red spaceship, if you haven't seen it, is that it's like very airy. It's kind of a 3-story soaring ceilings, windows, like walls of windows, the complete opposite of the old Terminal E. It's really just kind of a beautiful space.
And I know you're obsessed with legal seafood issue, which I think is really troubling.
And petty.
And petty, or petty, and petty.
And Tom
but
Petty.
The thing that is fabulous is the TSA deal. What is up with? You can have contraband in your pockets and not even have to take it out, or
you could,
or something like that.
You can have guns, knives, whatever.
I didn't mean contraband. I meant like you don't have to take out your stuff, so to speak.
Yeah, so it's called an analogic computed tomography.
Of course.
CT lanes.
Yes.
And the great thing about it is you no longer need to take out your laptop, any electronics. So what it does is it basically sends through a 3D image where if there's a TSA person there, they rotate the 3D image so they can see everything in your bag. It's not like the old X-ray that they have now where you need to take liquids out or your laptop. So, and then also it's just a huge area. So as opposed to like those tiny congested lanes that exist now.
Yeah, which are horrible.
Yeah, you kind of go through and like these things look like nuclear missile launchers.
Love that.
They're huge.
I like that look.
They're wonderful.
And is this going to be at every terminal eventually? I assume it's expensive. Is it going to be everywhere eventually?
It's expensive and it's also really big. I assume that, hopefully in the future they'll expand out. But
so what you're saying is you don't know.
I have no idea.
So you have this wonderful space age kind of Jetsons looking picture of the Delta New Sky Lounge, but you have to be a big spender. So what does that mean? You have to spend thousands a year on air flight before you can get to go in there?
So Delta did this whole rejiggering of their frequent flyer lounge program back during the fall. And what they essentially did was they changed the amount of instead of going strictly by miles, it then became how much you're spending to get to a place. So there was that, and then also the credit card programs. They eliminated some credit cards that used to allow you to get into the lounge, and others that allowed you to get in. They upped the annual fee for. So it really caused a lot of outrage, and I talked to a lot of people who are like, "I'm never flying Delta again," which completely is not true.
Yeah.
But people are angry about it.
And I thought they ultimately Delta modified the thing. Did they not?
They
with all
did,
the blowback?
but they did not fully modify, and they're planning to go forward in 2024 with their original plan.
So hold on for 1 second.
Yeah.
So when you say a lot of money, how much kind of money are you talking about? How much people have to spend to get where they're going to get to sit in this gorgeous bar?
It runs into the thousands.
It does. That's what I figured. Okay.
Does.
I guess I won't be going there.
And even if you are able to, even if you have access, if you want to bring a guest in, it's gone up from like $40 to $50. It's like everything has gone up.
Now, one other thing that I thought was really cool, the high top chairs. So you can go in there. That's really very impressive.
What's impressive about that?
Because you have more support for your back. It's more
Well,
comfortable.
also, it's like they're kind of blinders on the side.
Yeah.
So you don't have to look at other people. You can pretend you're in a normal area as opposed to the airport.
One more thing other than the legal seafood obsession of yours, which again is, post Roger Berkowitz, who gives a damn? I shouldn't say that.
No,
but
they
I
still
did.
have very good shrimp.
They do?
Yes, they do.
No, they don't. It's not like when Roger was doing
I
it.
think
But
the
in any
shrimp
case,
I think the shrimp are the same,
I don't
Jim.
know about that. But in any
Okay.
case, it seems to me that you're one of those globe writers who in every single piece has to use a word that no one has ever heard before. And in this column, it's biophilic. Is that correct? What does the word biophilic mean, please?
It refers to design, and it's like something that's happened in airports. And if you look at old renderings, or the initial renderings of Terminal E was filled with biophilic design. And biophilic is meant to sort of connect a passenger, or depending where you are, whatever building it is, to the outside.
To nature.
To nature. So, you have what exists, these giant walls of windows, and then there were going to be tall trees going up with these soaring
So
ceilings.
where are the trees?
Trees are gone. It's like,
Why? So they could fit illegal seafood in, or what's the deal?
you know, what really sticks in my craw is
to
that
speak,
they
yeah.
did this this sort of giant out, like in the terminal duty-free shop. So it's not within a shop, it's kind of out in the open.
And you think it takes up too much space?
It takes up too much
and
space.
ruins the flow. I love flow. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm with you on that thing.
Yeah, Jim's a flow man.
But having said that, this thing looks, again, from the outside, it's really a beautiful, striking building, yes?
It is. It's a striking, especially on the outside. On the
Yeah.
inside, it's still beautiful.
6 hours you spent there.
I spent 6 hours. I got my flight, which is like I'm normally 6 minutes early,
Yeah.
and this time I have 6 hours to
But you have
really
to fly
investigate it.
internationally, though. You got to be going. You can't
Well,
be
you can
just
just go
going
to the terminal like
Cleveland.
he did. You don't have to go anywhere.
snuck
You can
into
check it
Terminal
out.
C.
Oh, you can just walk around in there. Okay, that'd be
Yeah.
kind of fun. And
We're
go to
talk-
Legal Seafoods, of course.
Of course.
While you're there.
Spend 6 hours at Legal Seafood.
We're talking to Christopher Muther, travel writer for the Boston Globe.
So it is Christmas week, and lots of people are going to be traveling. Apparently, we're catching up to where we were before the pandemic. It's going to be a mob scene this weekend, right?
We have more than caught up. No, seriously, it's like now we're higher than 2019 numbers because people are anxious to travel. But I would say that if you have plans to get in an airplane and travel, you need to be in a plane today to avoid the rush. Really?
Too late.
Too late. You lost. So up until the 21st is when it's like pretty decent, and then from there on it becomes sort of hell on an airplane.
Yeah.
Why do people, in all seriousness, I understand if you have to visit a family member in wherever you do it, but what do they say, 7.5 million people or something are going to fly?
Yeah.
Why? I mean, what kind of masochism? Do you fly over Christmas?
The only time I have flown over Christmas is I fly on Christmas Day. The airport is dead. The tickets are less expensive, and so that's the smartest way to
Actually,
do
that's
it.
pretty good.
Yeah. But then you miss the morning under the tree and the
That's
eggnog.
the idea.
and
Limited family
Yep.
time.
Limited family time. Okay. Well, that's one of the problems. I mean, you talk about people driving. I mean, you've got to really leave before. What do they say? If you're going to travel on December 23rd, you better leave before 10 o'clock in the morning. You're going to be screwed. This is your colleague Emily Sweeney's piece.
Right.
Talking about the roads are going to be so crowded.
104 million people
Yeah.
are going to drive more than 50 miles.
Yeah,
And
well,
that
because
is-
you have to go. That's what we're going to talk about this with our listeners
We
later.
are.
I mean, you have to go see, your in-laws, then you got to see your own parents, and then if somebody's divorced, you got to see divorced mom and divorced dad and the
You got to see
stepkids.
ABBA and a vision. What is that thing they do in Europe? What is it called?
ABBA Voyage.
ABBA
Yeah.
Voyage,
Yeah,
which is
that's-
not really ABBA.
It's the avatars.
The avatars.
Yeah.
Of,
I love how it always comes back to ABBA.
it really does always come back. Is it ABBA, not ABBA? It's ABBA?
ABBA.
ABBA.
I mean, I guess if you're fancy, it's ABBA, like
ABBA.
vase, as
Exactly.
you tend to
I
say.
say vase. Do you say vase?
I say vase.
Vase.
So do
okay.
I.
I'm a
Vase.
man of the people,
You
Jim.
apparently
Absolutely,
are.
vase. It's the way to go.
He's a man of the people.
Okay, so basically, if you can stay put, but you're not going to be able to stay put because you're going to have to see your relatives.
There's
Also, that's stupid. Everybody says, leave between 9 and 9:15 on the 20th. I mean, that's all made up crap, right?
Well, the thing is, everyone reads it, then they also leave between 9 and 9:15.
Yeah.
So you can't win. You can't
They have
win
the
no matter
sign-
what you do.
They have the signs at the Cape, plan your return trip, heavy traffic between 11 and 7. And, as somebody who's driven back from the Cape on Sundays, since I was, for decades,
Yeah.
it's totally unpredictable. You can leave at 5 o'clock and there's no traffic. You can leave at 10 o'clock and it's a mob scene. Totally unpredictable. My advice is you just don't know.
Right, you don't know. And also there's a new trend of people who want to be solo on the holiday, which I love this trend.
Oh, really?
You
Yes.
writing about that? You should write about
You
that.
should. I mean, no family at all?
No family at
Just
all.
sitting there meditatively?
Yeah, it tends to be more of like a wish as opposed to something
reality,
people
yeah.
actually do. But no, people were surveyed and they're like, well, I would actually, when it comes down to it, rather not have to deal with any of it. Travel, family, drunk aunt, any of it.
You know
Well,
what that is?
also-
That's really biophilic. Do you find it to be that way?
But you know what it is about Christmas, though?
What?
Thanksgiving is a very nice holiday because, you may get in fights about politics and stuff like that. But when Christmas has got all the presents, so there's enormous pressure and you're spending money you don't have and you're going into credit card debt and you always forget to buy something for somebody. What are you laughing at?
I'm laughing. I shouldn't say what you just said because I kind of Jamie erased it quickly because obviously he didn't want me to read it. He said, I would give a year's salary to be alone on the holiday.
Yeah.
Oh,
well,
all your relatives. Oh, thank you. Thank you for being in touch with us.
yeah,
We
and
appreciate
then you have to spend all this money, right? Buying presents for people that you really don't know what to buy for them, and you end up buying a stupid sweater that they hate.
And that, actually, let me say something which is actually helpful
Please.
very quickly, which
Yeah.
is if you are traveling for Christmas, make sure that you leave presents unwrapped if you're going through the TSA because
They make you unwrap
they'll
the
make you
damn present?
unwrap because they don't know what's in there. So
my
don't wrap presents before you get on an
That
airplane.
is actually a useful tip. Unlike your story about how to be rude on an airplane. Like, people didn't know that enough. And by the way, I got to take issue with you. I think, in all seriousness, I think you got something wrong. I am not going to tell the story, Marjorie. Do not worry.
Here we go.
I was almost hauled
Jim
off the
repeats
plane.
the same stories.
I'm not going to tell the story.
You just did.
No,
he was hauled off the plane.
No, I was not hauled off. I was almost hauled off at 7:47
Almost hauled off.
because I was essentially defending my rights. And what I learned from the flight attendant when I almost got into a fist fight with an 8-year-old in front of me.
He's told the story.
I'm not telling the story.
He slipped it in.
Here's the question. You suggest.
I can tell the story. Go
Except
ahead.
you suggest in
we're all
your
sick of it, Jim.
column about rudeness. You suggest. What do you suggest? Oh yeah, you suggest that. Well, wait, let me step back. My understanding of, unfortunately, of the rules about reclining,
Yes.
which you disagree with, I think, is that the person in front of you, which is scandalous as far as I'm concerned, is entitled, regardless of how tall you are, regardless of how cramped you are, to fully recline anytime he, she, or they want. Is that the rule of air travel, or is it not? Yes or no?
That is not the rule.
Oh, well, great.
Of air travel.
That's what they told me. What is the rule?
The rule is you should not recline.
Should. I'm not talking should. What are you allowed to do if you're the recliner, Christopher Muther?
Well, it depends because if it's you, I bet you're one of those people who, as soon as the plane takes
No,
off,
I do not.
your seat goes back.
I do not do that.
Those of us who are trying to work on their laptop, your seat flies back, my laptop gets damaged, it's thrown.
What are my rights as a recliner?
You know, for instance, if I'm sipping a pre-departure cocktail, I still have it in my hand, it goes back. I'm wearing champagne the rest of the flight.
Yeah, exactly.
What are you entitled to do? Not what should you do. What can you do if you choose to recline the whole way? Can you do that?
You can, yeah.
Well, that was my point.
I mean,
you can.
the person behind you can put their knee into the back of your seat as well.
Do they still sell that? What are those things called? Knee defenders?
Sadly, no.
They don't. They don't really.
I mean, they sell them, but airlines have outlawed them.
Is that true?
It is true.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because people get into fights on the air over these things.
Yeah.
I mean, unfortunately for you, Jim, you're an oversized person, so you have these problems that many other people don't.
I think it's called big and tall.
Big and tall, that's right.
Did I
The
ever
big and
tell
tall.
you the story about
Yes, you
almost
did.
being
Yes,
shrunk? I
yes,
did.
Jim,
Okay,
we've
just
all
wanted-
heard the
ever
story.
tell you that
Yes,
story?
every
But you know
time.
the other thing I can't believe? When you talk about people taking off their shoes and subjecting
disgusting.
their fellow passengers to their bare feet on an airplane. I mean, that's really awful. Can the stewardesses or flight attendants
we call them now. Thank
come
you.
over and reprimand the passenger, or do they just have to put up with that from here to San Francisco?
They have to put up with it. And
Isn't that awful?
I have seen, because readers love to send me these things,
Yeah.
videos of people peeling skin from their feet. And
That is made up. That is really not true.
And I had no idea there was so much dead skin on the feet of Americans. Never until I saw this.
You ever heard about that thing where you put your feet and the
They eat it
fish
off,
eat
yeah.
the dead skin
Oh,
off?
I've done it. Yeah.
No, you have not.
I have done
Where?
it.
Like where?
I did it in Greece.
Did you really?
Yes.
And why would you do that? For a column or something?
I'm a travel writer, Jim. It's all about immersing myself
Okay.
in
How does
experience.
that feel when fish are
Baby
eating your
soft.
And
feet?
also immersing my feet in tanks of ravenous fish.
Yeah.
that
How does
wanna
that
eat-
feel?
It feels like a million pinpricks
Does
in
it
your
really?
feet, and you're grossed out. But
Yeah.
as I might have stated earlier, I'm a man of the people.
That's right.
So I need to sort of get in and do these things.
Zoe said she had her fish eat her dead skin on her feet in Mexico. Honestly, liberating and rejuvenating? What are you talking about?
Yeah. You can go to CVS and get one of those files. It's like and you just do it yourself in the shower, you know.
Like over the fish tank, maybe?
Well, over your heel. Well, you could do it over the fish tank, I suppose, but this is over my heels in the shower for the baby soft heel, which, of course, is very important.
We were going to talk about, and I am totally with you, New York is a great place. No, we're not.
Why not?
Because we're talking about clipping your toenails on a plane instead. No one has ever done that to you. You wrote about it as a horrible thing in the abstract. No one has ever clipped their toenails.
Yes,
You've seen this?
I have seen the toenails for sure. I haven't seen the dead skin. I've seen videos of, but I've seen the toenails.
People clipping their toenails on a plane?
It was someone who was reclined all the way back, and I think it might have been you.
Jay Bologna has just sent us a picture of
Bologna is how he pronounces his name, by the way.
That's what I said, I think.
Okay.
A cheese grater. Oh, that's what you do. You bring the cheese grater on the airplane.
So can we stay on this 1 second? We'll get to New York next. Well, it's too late, but we'll get to it next time you're here. Go to New York before, especially right after Christmas. It's really cheap. You made some great points. Read his column. Do airplane rules allow you to peel your feet and clip your toenail? They do?
They do, yes.
That's really horrible. That's really horrible.
I mean, the only sort of consolation in all of that is that people who do that often don't put their shoes on, and then they walk down the aisle to the bathroom.
Oh, and then stand on the floor.
And then stand on the floor, and hopefully they get ringworm or something.
Yeah.
So.
How many people in the audience here have clipped your toenails on an airplane?
Nobody.
Everybody. That is incredible.
Can you believe all those hands?
If you're not here, every single
animals,
person.
All animals.
Okay. I would just like to say one thing, because I'm
please?
not much of a traveler, but I spend a lot of time in New York because my sister was there, my kids were there and stuff. It has become a nightmare to go down to New York and try to go to the Empire State Building or some of these.
Well, don't go to the. It's like Rick Steves would say, don't go to the Empire State.
4 hours in line.
Don't go to the Empire State Building.
Because some people like to go to the Empire State Building and stand up on the top, you know.
Your son is the only person who
Well, that was a long time ago.
Okay.
But I waited in line like hours. I probably spent 2 days, at least 24 hours, 48 hours in line at the Empire State Building. And they tell you can pay more to get in the shorter line. It's a scam.
Well, I'll tell you where to go next time.
Okay.
You will?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
By the way, we ever talk to you when you went on that eating fest in New York City? We ever talk about that either?
No, it's part of the same story.
Well, let's do that next time. Is that okay?
That's okay.
It's
yeah.
really
We can't
nice
talk
to
about
see you.
Christmas in New York next time because Christmas will have passed.
We can talk about next Christmas in New York next time.
All right, plan
and actually,
ahead.
half his story is about how New York is cheaper and fewer people after Christmas. So it'll be perfect in January.
After Christmas, like after January 1st.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Don't
especially.
go Christmas week.
Do not go Christmas
Do not
week.
go Christmas
Don't
week.
fly
Absolutely
or
not.
peel the skin.
You want to get
the
Marjorie
skin off
for
your feet.
Christmas? Got her a nail clipper. Is that thoughtful?
Yeah, thank you very much,
That's very
Jim.
good.
She
Thank
wanted
you
a
very
cheese
much.
grater.
I
by
did.
the way.
Yeah, cheese grater. Can you imagine? Oh my God.
It is too
that is
disgusting.
Okay, good thing I already ate my lunch. We've been speaking with Christopher Muther, travel writer for the Boston
It's
Globe.
his
Thank you
fault.
very
He
much
wrote about
for
it.
putting up with this abuse here
Thank
from
you,
Mr.
Christopher.
Browning.
It's nice to see you.
Up next, we're going
Great
to
to
open
see
the
you, too.
lines to hear some
Happy
of
holiday,
your
Merry
travel
Christmas,
tales.
etc.
I guess we could ask the listeners whether they clip their toenails on flights.
I prefer you don't.
But we're basically
Actually, we
getting your
should.
tips and tricks of what you're dreading this holiday season. Do you want to spend your holiday season alone? Do you want to see your family? Do you want to see your mother-in-law? 877-301-8970 is the number to call or text your Christmas travel plans. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH.
Oh, whoops. We're supposed to be
back.
doing this pledge.
Yes,
no, we're
we are
not
back.
We're actually not back. We're doing a pledge.
We're doing a pledge.
And the number to call, if you're so inclined, is 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. By the way, it only takes a
We have a
couple
match, Jim.
Oh, right. Oh,
Yep.
then you do this.
We have
you
a
talk.
match.
I'm
That's
sorry.
right.
I should have said that
this
before.
is the only day of the December membership drive, and we're asking you to support our future listening with an end-of-the-year contribution. That's part one. But here's the big deal. We have a generous group of these Beacon Circle patrons that are matching contributions between now and
This
2
is
p.m.
huge,
dollar
actually.
for dollar. So in other words, you give $10, it becomes 20. Give 125, it becomes 250. It's like a coupon kind of deal where you get twice as much bang for your buck. It's a perfect perfect time to give, and it only goes until 2 o'clock today. So I always say, but I do like to get the pledges during our show because it makes me feel good, and it makes me feel people are listening to our show, and I'll be employed for a while longer, so that's always a good thing.
Never know.
So if you like what you hear between 11 and 2, and you want to give before we are done at 2 o'clock, and you want to double the length or the worth of your contribution, now is the time. 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. This special match is only available until 2 o'clock. So if you give $50, it becomes $100. You give $5, it becomes $10. Twice the worth.
And since the enticement, as Marjorie calls it, is the virtual wine tasting with the fabulous Rick Steves, I would say the premier travel authority on the planet. This is February 6th at 7 p.m. online. You get 6 small bottles of wine. They're not so small, actually, delivered to your house. They're fabulous. You get a sommelier. You get to talk to Rick for a couple hours. It's $12.50 a month and $150 all at once to either buy for yourself or give it as a gift. You know what happens if you do it in this hour?
It doubles your money.
The $12.50 becomes $25 a month, and the $150 becomes $300. This is the time to give. My attitude is, if you're going to give to the station, the perfect time to do it is match time, and you have 35 more minutes in this hour, and then the match disappears. It is not here at 2 o'clock. You call 888-897-9424 or go to gbhnews.org.
And it only is until 2 o'clock.
2
the
o'clock.
match is until 2.
Good point.
And our show is over at 2.
It is.
And not to take anything away from Jared's Culture Show, but if you have a choice between our Culture Show and Boston Public Radio, I would say our show.
Wow. That's pretty bold on your part.
I love Jared, but I want to get the gold star.
Well, he
Jim.
doesn't have a match. By the way, he's got a great show, but he does not have a match. So do it now. 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. We're live at the library, streaming at facebook.com and youtube.com/GBH News. We're going to end the show continuing a conversation we had briefly with Christopher Muther about holiday travel and invite you in. Are you traveling in the next week? Do you have tips and tricks to stay sane during the busiest travel season, even if you're just driving a few miles? And as I mentioned, 104 million people in this country are driving more than 50 miles. If you got to load up a bunch of rugrats in the car, the dog, the cat, the Christmas presents, and head to your, it depends on the family, your dreaded in-laws, how do you deal with it? 877-301-8970. And as nauseating as it is, since we brought up the topic, and Christopher Muther swore that he has seen people on a plane clip their toenails, of all the rude behaviors he describes in that piece of his, the rudest, even worse than fully reclining your seat if someone big is behind you, is doing something with your bare feet, either pulling off dry skin, or if you have ever seen it or would even contemplate doing it yourself, give us a buzz at 877-301-8970.
877-301.
Why are you laughing?
Because listen to this. This is from Paul from Worcester. Decades ago, my dad sent some Legal Seafood's live lobsters to a customer who lived in Ohio. Dad received a thank you note, said, "Thank you so much for the live lobsters. When they did arrive still alive, we had to throw them away because they were green, so they must have gone bad in transit. They'd only seen cooked lobsters, so they assumed they were all red when they were alive."
That's pretty
Imagine
good.
that, because they're almost black, actually, when they're still alive, right?
You don't even eat lobster, do
No,
you?
but I've seen a lot of
Well, I
live
don't
lobsters, and
understand
they are
that at all.
very, very black. And that was in reaction to our Legal Seafoods commentary from a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
You know what's really difficult at Christmas?
No.
There's a bunch of things that are difficult at Christmas.
What is it?
Like this story says, and there was a great story in the Globe about this the other day, talking about how stressful it's become. You have to put the needing to be perfect, getting the perfect gifts, having the perfect decorations, having the perfect food, if things don't go well.
Well, you obsess on it, but you're in that category.
I am in that category. And then when things don't work out, something goes wrong, you feel absolutely terrible about it. And, you don't want to spend your holidays alone, but there's too much stress, and usually it falls on women.
It does?
Yes, I would say it does. I don't think men care that much if the decorations are perfect around the house. I saw Martha Stewart on TV the other day.
Yeah, how's she?
And
She's like 80. Do you know that?
She's like 80. She looks great. She has
does
her
look
own
great.
tree farm, But she's talking about
What do you mean, like Christmas tree farm?
Christmas tree
I
farm.
didn't know that.
decorations that you could make around the house. The great story about Martha Stewart is that years ago, when she was still married, before her husband left her for one of her assistants, she was too busy at Christmas to have her mother, her daughter, and husband even there. She shipped them out for Christmas.
That. Her husband left her for one of her assistants?
Yeah.
Okay, so Rick in
Martha
Westport
was too busy.
texts and says, can you re-gift airline tickets? No, actually, we're not. You can't do that. We're not doing re-gifting today. I'm sorry to obsess on this other topic. I'm going to try to get over it in a second. Do you know anybody in the world, people you like even the least, who you can ever imagine taking their shoes off? I'm sorry.
No.
No. Not just taking their shoes off, which I can imagine. Taking their shoes off and clipping their toenails on a plane.
No,
can you imagine
I can't.
That?
I mean, it's
what
really,
kind of person does that?
I don't know. I don't know. It's really, really rude. A lot of people are giving Rick Steves a wine tasting to their family members.
They are?
Yes, for gifts. It's a very good idea. Okay, 877-301-8970. And the other thing is, if you're divorced and you got to go to dad's house and mom's house and the in-laws' house and the other, your partner's parents' house, it's like you're traveling all the time. At some point, what point do you decide I get to stay in my own house?
Well, you know
I
what the
got
problem
the kids
is?
now. I stay in my own house. People can come to me.
It is so stressful, or can be so stressful and exhausting. Most people, I think most people get the week off, or at least a significant chunk of the week off. And how do you feel at the end of the week?
Exhausted.
Exhausted. Let's go to Tamara in Southbridge. You're first on Boston Public Radio. Hi there, Tamara.
Hey, guys. So I have two things. I'll be as quick as I can. But
Sure.
The first thing is, when did we decide that we would get up as soon as the plane landed and not let the people in front of us, we go row by row?
That's a good one.
with you, Tamara.
That's a good one.
That is huge. Go ahead.
I almost got into I'm sure I was being recorded and was as a Karen for the fact that I was telling some lady to sit down that she was rude. The other one is, let's be honest, the seats have gotten smaller and some of us have gotten bigger. Do you really have to recline?
Yeah, Jim. Do you really have to
Tamara,
recline?
you're my kind of person. You hit the nail on the proverbial head, not once, but twice in that spirit. By the way, have you ever encountered anybody clipping their toenails on a plane?
Well, I do it often when I fly, but
I don't think so. Tamara, thank you for the call.
The
We
other thing
appreciate it.
is, I would rather pay extra to check the bag than to have that panic of whether or not you're going to be able to get your bag in the
Well, you know
overhead
what you shouldn't be able to
compartment.
do? You shouldn't be allowed to put the bag before your seat, because that
People do
means
that
people in the
all
front of
the
the plane have to go into the back of the plane to do the overhead luggage thing, and then they have to wait till everybody's off the plane to go retrieve their luggage. Hello?
That's right.
Thank you.
That's
I appreciate
absolutely
it.
true.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Just
My
wanted to make
daughter
sure
in
you were-
Miami is enjoying
Thank you,
Xmas.
all three of you. I appreciate
My
it.
daughter in Miami is enjoying Xmas by the pool, breathing. No travel during the holidays. Xmas in January is fine. That's an idea. Kind of delay your Christmas and do it. I had a relative who used to do this. She would wait till after Christmas to buy
Oh, to
those
save
dresses.
money on the gifts.
Save money on the gifts.
know.
Yeah, I don't think that's a good
well,
one. no.
actually, but why can't? Well, how about the 26th? Isn't that Boxing Day or something? What is Boxing Day? in
Boxing
Canada?
Day is when they have. I don't know. I don't know what Boxing Day is.
26.
I think
Thank you. But what is it?
They exchange
Who knows?
gifts.
I don't know what it is.
Meredith from Needham says she wraps her own gifts. I feel like the mom puts the details all together for.
Do you know we're talking about travel?
That is true.
What the hell does that have to do with
I'm talking about
anything?
stress at Christmas.
Oh, stress.
Stress.
So I'm talking about travel, and you're talking about stress?
Traveling is stressful. The whole holiday is very.
Do you go
very
anywhere?
Stressful. No, I don't.
Because you can't plan it. You can't organize it and
can't
plan
organize
it,
it,
right?
and I'm too exhausted after Christmas Day. I just
Can you
have to
imagine
collapse.
you trying to plan traveling at the best time around Christmas?
I haven't gone on a plane since the pandemic.
Is that Is
I
that
haven't.
really true?
No. I have a very dull life, Jim. I don't go anywhere.
I didn't say it was dull.
Josh from Waltham, thank you for calling.
Yeah, hello.
Hey, Jim, Marjorie. I think I'm with you, Marjorie. I don't think I've been in a plane or on a plane since COVID.
Yeah.
I mean, like your previous caller said, Tamara, it's awful with people getting up too early and it's squished and the delays and everything. I think if I'm going to fly in the future, I'm going to wait until you have a cheese grater as a pledge gift. I think that would really...
Jim and Marjorie cheese grater.
Yeah.
You are a genius, Josh. That'd be huge. A smug cheese grater. Josh, thank you for the call. Bill from Bridgewater, before we take a break, Marjorie, said, I decided to get the Rick Steves wine tasting for my threesome. So now that's two things we can do together. I'm reading what he wrote. I'm just, whatever. We got to take a break. Do you know that?
Listen to this. This is Charlene from
Apparently
Natick.
not.
Manners have disappeared from the past few decades, especially on planes. Thank God Oh gosh, the email disappeared.
Okay, let me try it again. I think we have to take a break.
We have to take a break. Okay.
No, I
I'll
just
try to
said
find
that.
the
We have to take
email.
a break.
I'll try to find
It's
the
called
email
a
during
text.
the break.
It's a text, Margaret.
It's a
Thank
text,
you.
whatever it is.
Okay.
877-301-8970 is the number to call. But we're going to take a break and be right back talking about travel and stress. I personally am having my 19th nervous breakdown, and Christmas is still 5 days away. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH.
Our colleague just said, if you listen to Boston Public Radio 15 hours a week, something, and Jamie just texted, our lead producer of our damn show, 720 hours you'll never get back.
That's right.
That's a little bit of a different
That's absolutely
attitude.
right.
Thank you, Jamie.
Listen to this from Alice from Roslindale.
What's
She
that?
mentions WCRB, which is the great classical
Fabulous.
music station, which
Fabulous.
is right across the hall from us.
Yeah.
It is so great. You go out, you leave our studio to go to walk down to the bathroom, and they're playing this
I don't think people have
soothing,
to know that.
beautiful well, you could be going to somewhere.
You could be getting a cup of coffee.
We have a coffee.
Take it.
We have a coffee in our
You
studio.
how about I have frozen breakfast sandwiches in the Ground Truth
Okay, whatever.
Project
You hear this
studio.
gorgeous music, and it's really soothing. That's a great job.
You
to
could
be
be
a
going
disc
to the
jockey.
bathroom. But
Well, WCRB is a great station
Right,
as well.
exactly.
That's not us, of course. We're raising money
No,
for
it's good
us,
you
and we
brought
are
it up, though.
WGBH. And we have a match going on until 2 o'clock.
We do?
Yes.
What does that mean, a match?
That means if you give $50, it turns into $100.
Wow.
If you're a high roller, you give $500, it turns into $1,000. It's an opportunity to double your contribution, and it really means a lot to us because, I really like the job, and we like to stay employed for a while longer. You never know. Jim might come back tomorrow if things don't go well. You know what I mean?
No, I don't know what you mean. But having said that, let's be clear. Monthly, if you become a sustaining member, which we haven't talked about at all, that's that monthly contribution thing.
That's
that
right.
gets doubled too.
That's right.
Gets doubled.
That's right.
Doubled.
Doubled, exactly.
Match, doubled.
So if you're giving $12.50 a month, it turns into what, $25,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So instead of $12.50 a month, it'd be $25 a
Fine,
month.
exactly.
And by the way, if you do give
What?
$12.50 a month, then you'll get that great wine tasting with Rick Steves.
Rick Steves.
And they are really fun. Jim and I have done a bunch of them. They're really fun. So anyway, the number again is 888-89. Whoops, where's my card? 888-897-9424. That's the number to call. Operators are standing by.
They
Jim.
are standing by?
Yes, or you can give online at gbhnews.org.
And let me be clear. I know a lot of people are going to start texting. We often do walk by the CRB studios, and we're not going to the bathroom. You just happen to be walking down the hall, and you may not be going to the men's. Is that correct, or is that?
That is
I want
correct.
to clarify the record.
You could be going to get some paper,
Okay,
to
so you
wash
get
my coffee
okay,
cups.
fine. You get the Rick Steves. I don't care what you do, whether it's a Rick Steves thing or you just make a contribution because you like what our colleagues do here. Marjorie said it. This is a match. It is the only match of this one-day-long campaign. You have 24 minutes to make a contribution, whatever amount, $5, $5,000 is going to be doubled. That is huge.
It's huge.
And so we hope you call 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. So I thought, this is Jim Browdy and Marjorie, and we're live at the Boston Public Library, and we're streaming. Figure it out if you don't know where we're streaming. But let me just say, we were originally talking about your holiday travel thing. Nobody's calling about that, are they? Because of you? Because you started talking about stress and toenail clipping
Yes.
or whatever it was. So if you want to talk about holiday travel, if you've got a hack, if you've got a trick about how to conquer the difficulties of holiday travel and come back refreshed and ready for work or whatever you do, kind of thing, it's fine. If you want to talk about the stress thing that Marjorie is talking about, that would be perfectly fine.
The problem is that Christmas is celebrated for only one day. With families being spread out, it's impossible to visit all the people you want to see. I propose everything is closed down between Christmas and New Year's, and every day can be celebrated as Christmas, and you can spread out all those visits over the week and actually enjoy them. That's very nice.
What do you think about people that go to return Christmas gifts the day after? Do you know the longest return lines of the whole, talk about stress of the whole year are the 26th? People can't, what are you writing that down?
No, but I'm thinking about, you know what
stuff?
I have done, which is kind of pathetic, but
No, I
I have
don't.
done it at the Container Store, which sells beautiful wrapping
I love
paper,
that.
and wrapping paper is
Yeah.
not cheap, and ribbons
Yeah.
are not
I
cheap.
buy wrapping paper right after Christmas
The
too.
day after, a lot of it is half price, but you know
Man, you
something?
can't find it.
It's been run out. I've gotten
That
there,
is an
and
amazing
they've run
story.
out of the wrapping paper and the
Wow.
ribbons. But I have tried that many times. I really
You
have.
have?
Well, I have beautiful wrapping paper.
Can I tell tell you, in all
as you may
seriousness,
notice.
I
My big
occasionally
skills.
mention that Marjorie can't cook, and I say that because she can't
That's
cook.
right.
But I will say the following: you are the
I am the single
best gift
that's
wrapper
right.
I've ever
I
seen
make
in my
bows.
life.
I make my own bows. That's because I used to work
You're
in a dress
fabulous,
shop when
huh?
I was a teenager, and that's where I learned to wrap presents. But you have to have good wrapping paper. You know, it makes a big
But should I
difference.
be clear, by the way, despite how good you are wrapped, when I get either my sausage, salami, or bacon of the month, which is the gift I've gotten every year for the last 20 years from Marjorie.
You tell me you love it, Jim.
I didn't say I didn't. I actually love it. None of them are wrapped. It just comes like
No,
on a brown
that's right.
paper thing
That's
to
it.
your
Well, it
house.
comes once a month.
It's like you're doing a porn magazine, the way it
Exactly.
comes. There's no return address. It's a brown envelope. It's a great gift.
Listen
Can
to
we
this.
talk about what we're actually talking
Yeah,
about?
this is kind of an upsetting one.
Well, then don't read it.
Well, but I can
Okay,
feel
go
her
ahead.
pain. Charlene from Natick, she says, manners have disappeared over the last few decades on airplanes. Thank God masks are available, because the worst is when the men in front of you decide to let out gas, thinking no one can hear.
That is
I have
disgusting.
almost
Why are
been
you reading that?
asphyxiated several times on an airplane.
Can I say, why? I don't think they're wearing a mask there, Marjorie. So I don't think it really.
Oh,
That is so
Charlene.
unlike you to read
I know.
one of those.
Well, I
That's
couldn't
not your
help it.
thing.
I couldn't help
Let's
it.
go to Joan in Brookline. You're next on Boston Public Radio. Welcome.
Hi.
Hi.
I have sort of a pleasant holiday story, a travel story. Maybe not
Please.
so pleasant, but I was once traveling on the plane and I was in the middle seat
Yeah.
and I got airsick.
Oh.
And there was a guy next to me,
Yeah.
like probably mid-20s,
Yeah.
without missing a beat. He just took his magazine or newspaper, whatever it was, and just shoved it right onto my lap.
Wow.
And, gave me something to get sick onto. He never looked at me. He never acknowledged the situation. He was really pleasant about it. He just gave it right to me, which I thought was so sweet and kind.
That's a beautiful story.
Don't you hate
That's
the
a
middle
beautiful
seats,
story.
though? Isn't that the worst,
The
to be
worst.
in the middle
The
seat,
worst.
Joan?
How do you feel
it's
about that?
gross. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, absolutely. I had no choice. That
Yeah.
was probably what made me sick.
That's fine. Now,
But-
Joan, I don't want to get into this, but since Marjorie got into something I don't want to talk about either, what do you do after you've done this? You have the magazine there. What was the next move that you made? What do you do next?
Just kind of wrapped it up and held it in my lap.
Exactly.
So we got there.
Wrap it up. Sounds like a
Yeah.
hell of a trip. Joan, thank you very much for the call. Do you get airsick? I don't even know this. Do you get airsick?
Not usually.
You don't?
No. Not,
Meaning
well,
you
I mean,
don't?
if there's terrible turbulence or
I
something
see.
like that, but not usually.
Is
no.
that terrifying? But is that
Yes,
terrifying?
I don't like to fly.
I don't like to
The
fly.
whole thing is like a cattle
I
car.
don't like driving either.
It's a mob scene. Everybody's shoving everybody around. I like trains.
You like trains?
You're on the ground. Cheryl from Situate. What do you think, Cheryl?
Hey, Cheryl.
Hey, well, as a certain age woman, my body heat is regulated by my feet.
It is?
So I wear sandals
Yeah.
365 days a year.
Oh.
That includes when I fly.
Yeah.
And it is easy to just take off your sandals and sit crisscross applesauce, and then you're tempted to pick out your feet a little or whatever.
Wait. You had me until the pick at your feet thing. Why do you feel the need to do that with other people around?
It's boredom on a plane.
Boredom,
I
yeah.
don't know.
No, that's generally when
know,
I'm bored. That's generally what I do. I pick the skin off my feet and toss it on other people's seats. Cheryl, you're in Situate. Situate is, I believe, the community where like 90% of people didn't have power overnight.
yeah.
Is that true?
No. I'm in Situate, Rhode Island.
Oh, I didn't know there was a Situate.
Situate,
Rhode Island.
Massachusetts really
Cheryl,
got hit
thanks for your
hard.
excellent call.
A lot of places got hit hard.
Like 90% of the homes had no power.
Yeah,
in
Mark
Situate.
Garfinkel, great photographer at
Fabulous
the Boston
photographer.
Herald. Now I think he works for
Channel
CVB.
something. I don't know which
He's
one.
on Twitter. He's always got these great pictures of any kind of catastrophe, and he did a great job with, trees falling on top of people. It's really their cars and everything.
Who wrote this note to us? Who wrote this note? Jamie just wrote it, and I love how we try to talk about how travel, and on this show it becomes about nail clippings and feet picking.
It has.
Give now, he said. That's exactly right.
It has
it's a
been
hell of an
reduced
inducement.
to
Speaking of that,
well, someone is saying they're talking about they had a very sore ingrown toenail and they had to take their shoes off because it was throbbing on a long international
That's really
flight.
good to
What are
hear.
you supposed to do,
That's
Jim, on a
good.
long
That's
international
good.
flight? Okay, we are talking about travel. It's the
Not
stress
really.
of Christmas, and we're talking about feet as well. I don't know
We
how we
are.
got there. Our number is 877-301-8970. You're listening to Boston Public Radio. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library.
I didn't know this was the fall membership drive. Whatever it is, it's the year-end, one day and one day only drive. It's not only a one day only drive, it's a 1 hour only matched dollar for dollar. It's another 16 and a half minutes. If you call 888-897-9424 or go to gbhnews.org, not only is it quick, but your money gets doubled. If you do the Rick Steve wine tasting thing, the virtual wine tasting, February 6th at 7 p.m. next year, $150 you contribute becomes $300, or the $12.50 a month you contribute becomes $25 a month. It's a fabulous deal. Or if you want to give $5 because you feel you want to make some contribution, do it. And it gets doubled. You go to 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org.
And this is the last pledge drive for weeks and weeks. So
it is.
If we didn't do these pledge drives, as I always say, we would have commercials, and the commercials can last 5, 6, and even 7 minutes.
They
They'd
can.
be 3 times an hour. It's a lot of commercials. But luckily, we're very lucky not to have to do that, because most of our money comes from the generosity of listeners like you. And if you want to get more for your money, make it go further to help do the programming here, to hire the people that can do the programming here, this is the time to do it. The pledge runs out at 2 o'clock at the end of our show. And as Jim just said, you double your money. Whatever you give doubles. If you do $12.50 to do the Rick Steves, as a sustaining member of the Rick Steves wine tasting night, then that becomes $25 a month. And that adds up. It's a lot of money over the years. What is it for the year? $25? That's $250?
$300 a year.
$300 a year.
Yeah.
That's a lot. So anyway, the number is 888-897-9424 at gbhnews.org. Jordan from West Warwick, Rhode Island, says he drives a delivery truck all day, and Jim and Marjorie make the day better. Thank you very much, Jordan.
Can I read another one? Eric
Yep.
from Andover. I am fortunate to be able to listen to Jim and Marjorie nearly every day. I greatly appreciate their insight into the state of the world and the easy humor of their report. Marjorie is a delight, and Jim is, well, Jim. Thank you. That is the recurring attitude, I think, of Jim is,
Did you
Jim.
see the one above this? Marion Hopkinton. She's crazy about you, Jim.
She is?
She says, love Jim and Marjorie, especially Jim. And no, I'm not kidding, Jim. So there you go.
You know what, dude? Jamie blocked her after she made after the text. So the number to call to double your money, I repeat, it's the only match of today's whole campaign for the next 14 minutes, is 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. I'm not exactly sure what we're talking about. We intended to talk about holiday travel. What are your tricks of the trade to reduce the stress and that sort of thing? Then Marjorie allowed it to evolve into just stress around the holidays and how you deal with it, and you can take it from there.
Well, an anonymous texter apparently isn't happy with the way things
Why's
have
that?
kind of segued. Let's not add feet picking to the recurring topics like regifting, daylight saving time, MCAS, etc. So they're not happy about this conversation. I'm very sorry.
I'm happy about it.
It was Jim's
Actually,
idea.
it was Christopher Muther's idea.
You know, Gretchen from Marshfield rather says she wants to make sure we get the points, which we do if you donate during our show.
Yeah.
We get the points. We get the gold star. So anyway, we're talking about stress around the holidays, traveling around the holidays. What's your travel strategy? What's your stress strategy? And do you behave yourself on an airplane?
Can we go to this guy? I am so with him. Robert in a car. You've got a complaint that I am totally on board with. What is it?
Hey, good afternoon.
You too.
I was flying. Sorry, let me get off speaker.
Yep. Yeah.
So I was flying from Boston to Spain for Christmas.
Oh.
And catty-corner across the aisle from me in the front row of cattle class, of course, this lady had the biggest bag that you could have and stuff it under your seat, but she was in the front row, and they had shut the doors, trying to, the flight attendants are checking seat belts, et cetera, and she says, lady, you can't have that there. And there was no place to put it overhead. She convinced the guy behind her to put her bag where his feet were going to go.
That's horrible.
God.
For a 6-hour flight.
Well, with
so
all
he had
due
his
respect,
knees in his chest the entire way to Spain.
Why didn't he just say no? Why didn't he just say no?
I sat there and just go, don't do it, dude, don't do it.
And I'm with you. Robert, that's a horrible and painful story, but you're on the right side of history. Thank you for the call. What kind of people do that too? Forget nail clipping. What kind of people, why do people bring these huge things on the plane which cause chaos for everybody?
I don't know, but a lot of people
Okay.
do try to bring oversized bags and try to shove them in and squish them in, and sometimes they get away with it, and sometimes they don't.
Checking a bag is really a wonderful thing. You do have to wait a little
It's
when you get
much
there.
less
And if they don't
stressful.
lose it, Exactly.
Yeah,
you have space.
Exactly. You don't have to worry about it. I mean, it's really weird how people get in line for the planes and everybody's watching, everybody's jockeying for position. That's all about the overhead bags, isn't it?
Totally.
Because you all have seats. Everyone's assigned a seat. It's about cramming your overhead baggage. You won't have to wait for baggage.
What do you think of those kind of people, Marguerite?
Well, I just think, like I said, I like trains. I like being on the ground. I don't like flying, but it does get you there faster. Lauren in Boston, thank you for calling.
Hey, Lauren, what's up?
Hey.
Hello.
A bad behavior story.
Please.
I was taking a flight over the holidays, and I don't have children, but I did go to dog school, and I was an auntie, and my dog trainer told me it's not how high you yell at your dog, it's how low you go. So I'm on the flight, and there's this couple that has like 4 children, and 3 of them are great, but there's one of them, he was sitting on his iPad playing a game when the flight attendant came by and said, hey, you need to put that away. And he didn't. And he came by again, and he needed to put that away. And his parents did not say anything to the child about flight attendant and what she was telling him to do. So I'm about 5'1", I weigh 120, it's soaking wet. But I leaned over across the aisle, and in a low voice, I said, when a flight attendant tells you to do something, you do it. I scared the hell out of this poor little kid, and he behaved on the entire flight. He was an angel.
Lauren, that's a perfect way to end it. You are my hero. That is a beautiful story with a beautiful ending. Anytime you want to fly with somebody, give me a call. We're done, Marguerite.
Here's people who say, if you must end up barefoot on airplanes, bring socks. That's a good idea. So you can put your socks on. Well, as she's saying, that is no excuse. If your feet hurt, just wear socks. And after your insightful comments about foot care on airplanes, I am canceling my vacation to the Caribbean. It's not worth the horror of what is now acceptable behavior on airplanes.
We're done, Marguerite.
So we are done. Thank you very much for listening to another edition of Boston Public Radio. If you want to keep up with us 24/7, you can listen to our podcast. It is, of course, called Boston Public Radio. I want to tell you who's going to be with us tomorrow. NYU medical ethicist Art Kaplan, Harvard national security expert Juliette Kayyem, Boston Globe business columnist Shirley Lee Young, food policy analyst Corby Kummer, and Wally McGee and Barry Bach from Boston's Healthcare for the Homeless program.
One of the great programs.
Yeah, it's a tough time this time of year to be homeless, obviously. Our crew is Zoe Matthews, Aidan Conley, Nicole Garcia, Hannah Loss. Our engineer is John the Claw Parker. Our executive producer is Jamie Bologna. Special thanks to the BPL team, Lauren Herbert, Maddie Geyer, and Angelica Marrero. Stay tuned to GBH 89.7 right after us for the Culture Show. They're going to speak with writer Richard Marsh, a diehard fan, retells the action film and the parody in this great parody. And of course, that's a Christmas film.
Well, some think it is, some think it isn't. Yeah.
And then it's the owner of Boston's first sake bar to get them a little drunk and explain why sake makes for the perfect holiday drink.
And you have 8.5 minutes to have your contribution matched dollar for dollar. It disappears at 2 o'clock.
Yeah, and thank you for everybody who contributed. We really, really appreciate it.
And thank you for coming, by the way.
Yeah, thank you, people who at the Boston Public Library.
Thank you so much.
I'm Marjorie Egan.
I'm Jim Browdy.
Thanks for tuning in. Hope you can tune in tomorrow. Meanwhile, I hope you have a great afternoon.
Thanks for listening to Boston Public Radio on GBH today and throughout the year. We're here asking you to support your future listening by making an end-of-year contribution to GBH. Every dollar right now makes such a big difference, and when you give now, you help ensure that the news you trust is on the air every day in 2024. You can go online securely with your contribution at gbhnews.org or call us 888-897-9424. Good afternoon. I'm Mark Owen. He is Jack Callahan.
And the big news here is that there's a dollar for dollar matching effect, but now for only the next 8 minutes. Jim just said 8.5. Funny thing about that clock. This is a real important 8 minutes for us here. It's your last chance to show your direct support for Boston Public Radio in 2023. Now, this match is made possible by our generous group of Beacon Circle patrons. They want you to join them in supporting 89.7 GBH. Please do your part right now. The number to call, our lifeline, 888-897-9424. 897-9424. Online gifts count in our match too at gbhnews.org. But you got to start taking that action now because 2 o'clock is just around the corner.
And if you've ever talked back to your radio as though Jim and Marjorie were right there in the room with you, well, then it's a great time to give, especially when you're certain that you're right and they're wrong, right? So please support your BPR listening in 2024 by making a year-end gift and then carry on with keeping Jim and Marjorie in line. 888-897-9424 online, gbhnews.org.
This is a one-day fund drive. You heard that correctly, to raise the money so that GBH can continue to keep you informed on all the important issues facing our communities, our country, the world. 2024 is just around the corner, and that news, it's not going to let up. So I'm asking you to please make an end-of-the-year contribution to help pay for your listening in the new year. That number, 888-897-9424, or online at gbhnews.org.
And all gifts right now are being matched dollar for dollar, but only for the next 6 minutes. This is all thanks to a very generous group of our Beacon Circle patrons. A great time to get involved. Support Jim and Marjorie. Support GBH. All gifts are welcome, and they will be matched dollar for dollar. Maybe you're at the library today, or you've joined Jim and Marjorie at the library. You watch them on YouTube, or you engage with GBH in the way you do. Put a value on that. Give as generously as your budget allows, and it will be matched, but only for the next 5.5 minutes. 888-897-9424 online at gbhnews.org.
And we're saying final around here a lot right now because some of it's true. This is your final opportunity to support Boston Public Radio. Get your gift matched while doing that, and to take advantage of a real special offer this afternoon. That is a wine tasting virtual event with Rick Steves in February. Become a sustaining member, just $12.50 a month, or a one-time gift of $150. We'll send you the link, but even more important, we're going to send you 6 bottles of wine. They're small bottles, but enough for 2 people to enjoy the sampling. You'll be in your home, no worrying about traffic and the weather, and we'll send you all the information you need to be online. It's going to be a fabulous evening. 888-897-9424 or gbhnews.org.
888-897-9424. I want to send a couple of thanks out to some folks joining us, having their gift match dollar for dollar right now. Francis in Needham wrote to us, liking the fact that Jim and Marjorie interview the governor, the attorney general, and other officials on a regular basis. Francis, a great reason to give. Thank you so much for your contribution. Also want to say thanks to Sharon in West Newbury, saying simply, love Jim and Marjorie. They crack me up. Thanks for the much-needed laughs. Sharon, thank you for your much-needed support. We're counting on you to do what Sharon and Francis have done. Join the party. Give what your budget allows. It will be matched dollar for dollar, but your time is running out. Please make that call or online show of support at 888-897-9424, online at gbhnews.org.
Information with a dose of humor. That's why you listen to Boston Public Radio. Whether Jim and Marjorie keep you company on your lunch break or while you're running errands, they talk about the issues that matter to you in that fresh perspective. Please support local conversations like this by giving right now. That number, 888-897-9424 or gbhnews.org.
Just about 3.5 minutes left to have your gift go twice as far thanks to this dollar for dollar match, a special opportunity. We're only making it available this hour. And your time is running out. So give what you can. Support Jim and Marjorie, Boston Public Radio. Maybe you're tuning into the Culture Show or any other program here at GBH. It's funded by listener support, and your support right now matters so much. We want to thank a very generous group of our Beacon Circle patrons. They understand the value of supporting the news and entertainment here on GBH, and they're asking you to do your part right now. Give what you can at 888-897-9424, online at gbhnews.org.
Giving really is easy. We only need your contact information, how much you want to give, and you determine that, and how you want to pay for it. And since it is the end of the year, your contribution can qualify for a 2023 tax deduction. Please support GBH and all that is meant to you this year. You do that by calling 888-897-9424 or gbhnews.org.
And a quick reminder, with your support today of $12.50 a month, you'll receive a ticket to a virtual wine tasting event with expert traveler and author Rick Steves. This promises to be a great time. It's on Tuesday, February 6th, beginning at 7 p.m. $12.50 a month. We'll get you the ticket. 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org.
And that dollar for dollar match is still in effect. Please get to the phone, get that call started or the online contribution started, and indeed seed will count. The number to call is 888-897-9424 or gbhnews.org. Get the call started, and we will make it count for that. And thank you so much for doing your part right now.